subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Rival. Chapter 126. Tokiwa Gym. Why did the leader of the Tokiwa Gym suddenly lower the challenge standard? Gary asked knowingly to see if he could find out about Mutuo. I don't know about this, but according to the challenger, Mr. Itaki recently got a good Pokémon and wanted to test the strength of that Pokémon. As long as Mr. Itaki's other Pokémon are defeated, he will send a newly captured Pokémon to fight. Joy said, "What Pokémon is that?" "I don't know." According to the challenger's description, the Pokémon is wearing armor and is a Pokémon with psychic attribute. It doesn't look like a Pokémon from the Kanto region. It should be a Pokémon from other regions. Joy judged. At present, the Pokémon Pokédex is not fully collected. People in the Kanto region have a low understanding of Pokémon from other regions. For Pokémon that they have never seen, they will only think that it is a Pokémon from other regions, but they have never seen it. "Gary, don't you know 053? Sabrina asked curiously when she heard that it was a psychic Pokémon. There are many types of psychic Pokémon, and the opponent is wearing armor. I can't really tell what kind of Pokémon it is. I can only know it by seeing it. Gary said, "I'll go with you." Sabrina said. On the way here, Sabrina heard Gary say that the challenge limit of the Tokiwa Gym is very high. Only trainers who have obtained more than 7 badges can challenge it. Even if they are qualified, they still need to make an appointment. The card is bigger than Sabrina, which makes Sabrina curious. "Okay, but I'll go replace the Pokémon first," Gary said. When they came to the teleporter, Gary dialed Professor Oak's number, and the call was quickly connected. "Gary, where are you traveling?" Professor Oak asked. Professor Oak knew Gary's travel progress very well, and he also knew that Gary had collected all the badges and could come back at any time. "We are now in Tokiwa City. I will go back with Sabrina after getting the Tokiwa Gym badge," Gary said. When mentioning Sabrina, she naturally stood behind Gary. "Oh, Sabrina, hello." Professor Oak also greeted Sabrina. "Hello, Professor Oak." Sabrina also responded with a smile. Although Sabrina was aloof, she was still very polite when she saw her elders. "Grandpa, please help me teleport the 4 Pokémon Blastoise, Ultra Iron Tyrannosaurus, Aerodactyl, and Sizer." Gary said, "You want these Pokémon? They're all your main Pokémon. Do you need to bring so many to challenge a gym?" Professor Oak asked in confusion. He knew very well which Pokémon Gary's main Pokémon were. These 4 Pokémon were the highest level Pokémon in Gary's hands. Even if the Tokiwa Gym is stronger, it is not necessary to send out all the main Pokémon. I heard that the gym leader of the Tokiwa Gym captured a very strong Pokémon, and no one has won until now, so I want to give it a try. Gary said, "Really? Then you better work hard. I'll get you some Pokémon." Professor Oak said. So, Gary teleported all 4 Pokémon except Zapdos and Alakazam to Professor Oak's laboratory. After getting the Pokeball, Gary went to the public room behind the Pokémon Center, opened the 5 Pokeballs, and released his Pokémon. LV53 Blastoise 3/Quasi-Legend. LV51 Super Iron Tyrannosaurus 3/Quasi-Elite. LV50 Aerodactyl 3/Elite. LV44 Alakazam 3/Elite. LV45 Sizer 3/Elite. Gary mainly looked at Sizer's level. After not seeing him for a while, Sizer's level reached 45. After all, it was the first batch of Pokémon that followed Gary, and the level was still good, compared with Ash's Charizard. From this, it could be seen that Ash is still a bit behind Gary in training Pokémon. Gary walked next to Blastoise and Ultra Iron Tyrannosaurus. He placed his hands on them and taught them the skill Dynamic Punch. Then he came to Alakazam and Sizer and spent 11 intermediate rare candy to upgrade their levels to 50. 6 Pokemon above level 50 should be able to compete with that Mutuo. Sizer and Alakazam also felt that their strength suddenly became much stronger, and they looked at Gary in shock. They had certainly felt this feeling before, but it was when they were level 27. They hadn't experienced it for a long time, but they didn't expect to experience it again this time. "I can only help you upgrade to this level for now, but later, I will help you become stronger. Gary said, tomorrow's gym battle will encounter an unprecedented strong enemy. Rest well today and fight with all your strength tomorrow. Kami, roar. The 5 Pokemon nodded. They didn't know what kind of rival it was, but they were very curious. The Pokemon that attracted Gary's attention must be abnormal. Gary's Pokemon can see any rival, but they will never see the rival that Gary thinks is a strong enemy. Come in and have a good rest. After explaining the matter, Gary also collected all the Pokemon. He took a good rest today and challenged the Viridian Gym tomorrow. Early the next morning, Gary and Sabrina set out for the entrance of the Viridian Gym together. As soon as they arrived at the entrance, they saw 3 familiar figures, naturally Ash and his 3 companions. Gary was quite surprised. He thought he would be separated from Ash and his companions this time, but he didn't expect to meet them at the entrance of the Viridian Gym again. Gary, Sabrina, Ash, and his companions also saw Gary and Sabrina and were very surprised. They didn't expect to meet again. Isn't this Ash? Aren't you staying on Cinnabar Island? Gary said, it has been more than half a month since they met on Cinnabar Island. Gary has disrupted the timeline. Even if Ash wants to get the Cinnabar badge, it will probably waste some time and it won't be as smooth as in the original plot. I have already defeated Blaine and got the badge. Now I only need the last badge to be eligible to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference. 1.3-inch Ash said, you are really slow in collecting badges. Gary complained. You Ash had nothing to say. After all, he saw Gary had 10 badges on the cruise ship last time. He may have collected more badges after not seeing him for a while. I have almost challenged all the gyms in Kanto region. Now I only have the badge of the Tokiwa Gym. Gary said, it is said that the owner of the Tokiwa Gym has captured a very strong Pokemon. I will beat that Pokemon until it loses its combat ability. It will be convenient for you to challenge it later. This way, you'll have a higher chance of getting a badge. I don't need your help. I can beat that Pokemon myself. Ash doesn't need Gary to help him. He has always regarded Gary as a strong rival. That's not up to you. Sabrina, let's go in. Gary took Sabrina into the gym. Chapter 127, versus Banmu. I want to see if you can defeat that Pokemon. Seeing Gary and Sabrina go in, Ash also rushed up, but was stopped by 2 guards dressed in Roman soldiers at the gym entrance. No entry. Only 1 person can challenge at time. The guard reminded. But they are 2 people. Ash said, they came together. They are traveling partners. We are also partners with Gary. Ash said, unconvinced. Do you think we didn't hear your conversation just now? You do know each other, but you are all trainers who want to collect badges, want a peek at the battle, and know in advance what Pokemon the gym owner will use. Don't think we don't know. Get out of here. The guard roared. Ash and the other 2 were scared away. How stingy. It's just to watch the battle. Blaine doesn't do this. After walking away, Ash complained. Okay, Ash. I'll come back later. Xiao Gang said. Yeah, and what Gary said makes sense. He might be able to defeat the powerful Pokemon of the Tokiwa Gym leader. Xiao said. Misty, what do you mean? Do you think I can't beat it? Ash said dissatisfiedly. You forgot that Gary's strength is 0.2 times higher than yours, and he didn't have as much trouble fighting Blaine as you did. Misty said, the situation of the battle changes rapidly. I just don't have a Pokemon suitable for dealing with fire Pokemon. Let me fight with Gary. The outcome is still unknown. Ash said, unconvinced. Okay, you're awesome, okay. Misty was too lazy to say anything. When Ash was stubborn, he was just like an unreasonable child. Ding. Issued task. Obtain Chompan Gym badge / reward. Intermediate rare candy X10. Dig permanent skill learning device. Top quality soft sand. Ground skill power increased by plus 50%. X1. Inside Chompan Gym, Gary and Sabrina entered the battlefield inside. Itaki built Chompan Gym quite luxuriously. The surrounding walls were made of fine marble. He was sitting on a sofa on a stand behind the command area with a Persian beside him. LV40 Persian 3/Gym. Gary saw the Persian and thought that the Persian was also normal in strength. It seemed that it was just a pet that Itaki kept. I'm a trainer of Chompan Gym, Itaki. Itaki introduced himself coldly. I am Gary from Pallet Town. Gary also responded and introduced himself. Bama was shocked when he heard the name. He had heard this name a lot recently. Cassidy and Butch, Jesse, and James all mentioned Gary's name in their reports, and even heard about it in the game hall of Rainbow Stone. Bama didn't expect Gary to come to the Tokiwa gym to challenge him, so he settled the previous accounts and taught Gary a lesson. You are quite energetic. Okay, I will accept your challenge. Bama smiled. The two guards at the door were standing in the command area at this moment. One of them announced, "The number of Pokémon used is limited to 3, and there is no time limit. The game officially begins. Go, Super Iron Tyrannosaurus." Gary threw the Pokeball. At the same time, Bamu also took out a Pokeball from his pocket and threw it. Go, Golem. Great. LV40 Golem 3/Quasi-Elite. Seeing the level of Golem, Gary felt that Bama was still quite disciplined and did not send out Pokemon above the gym level. Golem, use rollout. Bama's Solation gave the order. Boom! The Golem rolled out directly to the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Gary didn't understand what Bama meant. He felt that this Bama was not a qualified trainer at all. Compared with the Bama in the special comic, he was far worse. Since you came to me yourself, don't blame me. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, use Horn Drill. Gary ordered. Roar! The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus also ran forward, and the drill on its head spun rapidly, forming a series of white cyclonic streams. Bang! The two Pokemon collided with each other, and Golem was unable to wrestle with the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Horn Drill broke Golem's skills, directly broke its defense, and knocked it out. Bang! Golem flew back several meters and fell to the ground, losing its combat ability directly, and was killed by Horn Drill in one hit. It can be seen that this Golem is not a strong ability and cannot resist the one-hit kill skill. Golem loses its combat ability. The guard announced, "It's quite a trick, use it next." While Bama was speaking, he took back the Golem and then opened a Pokeball. A ball of white light entered the field, and the light dissipated and a Kingler appeared. LV40 Kingler 3/Quasi-Elite. The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus is back. Seeing Kingler, Gary took back the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus without hesitation. Alakazam, it's up to you. Gary sent Alakazam to fight. Although there was Zapdos, it was definitely not suitable to be sent out at this time. Great. Alakazam is on the stage. Kingler, use Crab Hammer. Bama ordered. Kingler rushed towards Alakazam sideways, and his huge right pincer was wrapped in a layer of water curtain. Psychic, Alakazam's eyes flashed blue, and Kingler's body suddenly floated up, and then Alakazam threw him out with confusion. Kingler relied on his crab shell to resist the attack, and immediately fired Bubble Beam to counterattack. After teleporting, use Dynamic Punch. 523-inch, Gary ordered. Alakazam disappeared instantly, and then appeared behind Kingler and fired a dynamic punch, hitting Kingler's crab shell. The fighting energy entered Kingler's body, shaking Kingler's body violently. Kingler suddenly felt dizzy and couldn't tell where Alakazam was, and his body began to shake around. Very good, use Psychic. Alakazam finally defeated Kingler with a Psychic. Itachi's trainer level was too low. He had no tactics at all, and he didn't even know the nature of these Pokemon and what kind of battles they were suitable for. Gary felt that these Pokemon were completely raised by others for Itachi to deal with gym battles. Compared with other gym leaders, Itachi was not a little bit worse. However, Itachi in front of him had no interest in ordinary Pokemon at all. He only believed in powerful strength, because any conspiracy, nasty plot, and tactics were useless in the face of absolute power. Itachi took back the defeated Kingler and said, "You are quite strong, and you are qualified to let me use the strongest Pokemon." Here it comes. Gary knew that Itachi was going to use Mewtwo and responded, "You are talking too much. The strongest Pokemon is Arceus." Tet. Bama was speechless. How could he not know it? However, Arceus only existed in legends. After all, no one had ever seen him. Chapter 128, versus Armored Mewtwo. Arceus is just a vague legend. Now I will show you what absolute power is. After Banmu finished speaking, the iron gate below slowly rose, and the figure of a humanoid Pokémon appeared. The humanoid Pokémon walked out of the gate. The Pokémon was wearing various armors. Most of the body was armored, and only the two thighs were not protected by armor. Anyone who saw the armored Mutwo would not recognize what this Pokémon was. LV70 Mutwo/God level. The Mutwo in front of him was not so invincible. At present, it was level 70, which was still at the champion level. That is, the current Mutwo has not grown to be as powerful as in the theatrical version. Especially the armor that Mutwo is wearing now is actually used to suppress its power. Gary feels that he still has a chance to fight. Gary, this Pokémon is not simple. You should be careful. Sabrina immediately used telepathy to remind Ash. From the moment Mutwo appeared, Sabrina felt Mutwo's spiritual power that was like the sea of normal, which was not the spiritual power that a normal psychic Pokémon could have. According to the rules, you can only use 3 Pokémon to fight, but considering your excellent strength, you are allowed to use all the Pokémon on you. Itaki suddenly said, "Are you sure?" Gary asked. "Of course I am sure." Itaki affirmed. "Okay, let's start. Alakazam. Use Kinesis." Gary ordered. "Ooh." Alakazam immediately used Kinesis to distract Mutwo's attention. Mutwo stood still. Because he was wearing a helmet, he couldn't see Mutwo's expression at the moment. Mutwo was probably confused now and didn't understand what Alakazam was doing. The 2 spoons in Alakazam's hand were bent and straightened, then bent again and straightened again, and repeated several times in a row. Mutwo just felt bored. Black's eye mask flashed 2 blue spots, and a strong confusion instantly bound Alakazam. Who? Alakazam also immediately used his telekinesis to resist. Mutwo was also quite surprised. After fighting so many trainers, it was the first time it felt the resistance of Rival. In the past, Rival could not compete with its confusion, but this song Alakazam did it. However, Mutwo didn't use much strength at all and increased the confusion again, throwing Alakazam away. Bang! Alakazam hit the marble wall hard and lost consciousness. Pokémon at the champion level can basically kill Pokémon below the elite level in one hit, even if they use the reverse attribute skill. Thank you for your hard work. Your mission has been completed. Gary didn't expect Alakazam to do any harm to Mutwo. It was good enough to use Kinesis. Aerodactyl, leave it to you. Gary threw the Pokeball and released Aerodactyl. Oh, Aerodactyl. Seeing Aerodactyl, Bama was also a little surprised. Ancient Pokémon are still very precious. Even if Bama doesn't care about the power of ancient Pokémon, he knows that ancient Pokémon have very high value. Stone Edge. Gary ordered. Aerodactyl roared, and a large number of stone blades appeared around it, flying towards Mutwo. Mutwo did not move, raised one hand, and 2 blue spots flashed on the black eye mask again. All the flying stone blades were all stopped in the air. As Mutwo waved his hand, all the stone blades accelerated and reflected back. Iron Head. Gary didn't sit still and waited for death, and immediately issued an order. Aerodactyl's head was covered with a layer of silver energy. Dual Wing Beat swung his hand and met the flying stone blades head-on. These stone blades hit Aerodactyl's iron head and turned into rubble in an instant, which could not stop Aerodactyl's charge at all. Armored Mutwo was also quite surprised. He immediately used his mind power to build a barrier to block Aerodactyl, but his body also leaned back slightly. Mutwo also felt that he was shaken by the power of Aerodactyl. The blue light on the black eye mask became brighter. The terrifying mind power burst out and threw Aerodactyl out. Bang! But Aerodactyl was much stronger than Alakazam. This psychic impact did not kill Aerodactyl instantly. Use Stone Edge from underground. Gary ordered. Aerodactyl slapped the ground with its claws, and sharp rocks broke out of the ground and continued to extend towards Mutwo. Boom! Mutwo did not dodge and let a stone blade hit him, raising a cloud of dust. Before the dust cleared, Aerodactyl suddenly felt that he could not move, and his body unconsciously rose to a high altitude and then fell heavily to the ground. Bang! After being hit hard, Aerodactyl also lost consciousness. This Gary is quite strong, breeder's Pokémon can actually withstand Mutwo's attack. Bammu thought to himself. Bammu originally thought that Gary would be like other trainers, and all the Pokémon he sent out would be killed instantly by Mutwo, but he didn't expect Gary's Pokémon to be so tenacious. Gary took back the defeated Aerodactyl and didn't rush to send out the next Pokémon. He asked, "By the way, don't you command your Pokémon? Just let it fight on its own." Bammu was stunned. He didn't expect Gary to suddenly ask him this question. How should he respond? As a trainer, it is very embarrassing to be unable to command his Pokémon. No need, it can fight on its own. I believe in its strength. Bammu said, "If that's the case, what's the point of you being a trainer? Did you really capture this Pokémon with your own strength?" Gary said. When these words came out, not only Bammu was stunned, but even Mutwo in the field was stunned. Although Mutwo obeyed Bammu's arrangements, it had begun to get tired of these things. It didn't understand the meaning of its existence. Xiao Diheo. Now, when Gary said what the meaning of being a trainer was, Mutwo immediately hit the question that he had been wondering about. He was also curious about what the meaning of Gary being a trainer was. What a noise! Are you going to fight or not? If you don't fight, it means you admit defeat. Bammu said impatiently. Bammu naturally had no interest in being a trainer. He just wanted to gain absolute power to fulfill his ambition to rule the world. Seeing Bammu getting anxious, Gary said nothing more and took out a Pokeball and threw it out. Go, Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Gary sent out Super Iron Tyrannosaurus again. Use Dig. Gary immediately gave the order, and Super Iron Tyrannosaurus immediately burrowed into the ground. Even if Mutwo's ability to read is very strong, Pokémon hiding underground will never be found by it. Even if Mutwo can, it should not be able to do it for a while. And Mutwo did not take any action on this and stood still. 129. Defeat Mutwo. Are you touched by what I just said? Gary looked at Mutwo, who was standing there motionless. He must have been affected by what he just said. This is a rare opportunity. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Attack. Use Mega Horn skill. Gary shouted loudly. Bang! The ground in front of Mutwo was broken, and the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus stuck its head out. The drill on its head was covered with white light, and suddenly expanded. It rushed forward and pierced directly into a barrier. The barrier did not completely resist, but was pierced by the drill. As the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus exerted force, cracks began to appear in the barrier. Mutwo, who was in a daze, was also shocked. With its thinking, it can naturally do many things at the same time. It did not expect that its own barrier could be broken by the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Mutwo did not have time to increase the power of the barrier. The barrier was broken, and the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus's drill hit Mutwo's chest armor. The huge power was released, knocking Mutwo back several meters, and his feet left 2 scratches on the field. Bammu sat up in shock, unable to believe what he saw. Mutwo was actually repelled. Since Mutwo joined the gym battle, Mutwo has been invincible, and no trainer's Pokémon can hurt Mutwo in the slightest. Crack! A crack appeared on the chest armor on Mutwo's chest, and it broke into 903 holes. There were many precision parts inside, but because of the breakage, the chest armor's restraint on Mutwo was no longer effective. Mutwo's whole body radiated blue light, and a terrifying telekinesis lifted up the Super Iron. With a wave of Mutwo's hand, the huge body of the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus flew backwards, and a deep pit was smashed into the marble wall. The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus could not withstand the attack of Mutwo and fainted directly. What kind of Pokémon is this? Sabrina was secretly shocked. Even she couldn't kill the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus instantly with Psychic, but the mysterious Pokémon in front of her did it. Gary put the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus back into the Pokeball, and then took out a Pokeball. Sizer, it's up to you. Gary threw the Pokeball. Cheap. Sizer in red armor appeared. Bammu looked at Mutwo's condition. Mutwo was not injured, but part of the armor on his body was broken. It was not a big deal, so Bammu did not stop the game. Sizer, use Double Team, and then use X-Scissor to attack. Gary said, Ja. Sizer immediately split into dozens of clones, and then rushed towards Mutwo collectively. A huge wave of telekinesis burst out from Mutwo's body, attacking every Sizer that approached him, but it only hit Sizer's clones. After all the clones were destroyed by Mutwo, Sizer's real body was not found. However, the next second, a red figure quickly emerged from the hole in front of Mutwo and came to Mutwo at lightning speed, attacking with two pincers. Bang! Mutwo stretched out his hand to create a barrier to resist, but this time the barrier was broken again like the last time, and Sizer's X-Scissor hit Mutwo and destroyed the armor on his arm. Mutwo was very surprised that his own barriers were destroyed one after another, which was too abnormal. In fact, this is normal. Bug-type restrained psychic. These barriers are not skills, but confusion walls built by Mutwo with confusion. Bug-type skills are naturally easy to break them. A big hole was knocked out of the ceiling, and Mutwo disappeared. Mutwo ran away. Bama was also ready to leave, but was stopped by Gary. Get out of my way. Mutwo was also angry and immediately opened the confusion shock. However, what was rare was that Sizer was not knocked away. Mutwo's confusion shock missed. I don't know, but I've taken a picture of the Pokémon. When I return to Pallet Town, I will ask my grandfather. Let's go to the Pokémon Center first. Gary said. Sizer launched X-Scissor to attack Mutwo again. Mutwo subconsciously used his arms to block. With a bang, Mutwo retreated several meters, and the armor on his arm was completely shattered. Take it. After successfully getting the Earth Badge, Gary followed Sabrina out of the Tokiwa gym. Go and send someone to chase him. Bammu ordered the two guards on the field. Mr. Gary, did you get the badge successfully? Joy asked Gary about challenging the Tokiwa gym when they arrived at the Pokemon Center. The two went to the Pokemon Center together. What? Bammu was also confused. He only realized at this time, Mutwo ran away. Gary was confused. Gary was still hiding his big move of talking. But before he could say this, Mutwo ran away. What are you talking about, kid? Mutwo, get rid of that Sizer. Bammu was angry after being broken by Gary. He decided to get rid of Gary first. Mutwo ignored Bammu, looked up at the sky shield, and then flew into the sky. What are you doing? Bammu asked. Yes. After leaving the Tokiwa gym gate, Sabrina immediately asked, Gary, what kind of Pokemon is that Pokemon wearing armor? I can feel that the armor is suppressing that Pokemon. Yes, I won. Gary said. X-Scissor. Gary shouted immediately. Mutwo didn't bother to pay attention to Bammu. It looked down on Bammu more and more. Just as Gary said, this Bammu was not at the level of a gym trainer at all. Bang! Bammu, a third-rate trainer, naturally didn't know the situation Mutwo was facing. He thought that Mutwo was letting him go and deliberately lost to Gary's Pokemon. Gary didn't pick up the badge. He waited until the badge fell to the ground before picking it up. It ran away. Although I won, I didn't defeat that Pokemon. That Pokemon ran away in the middle of the battle. Gary said. The two guards ran to the entrance on the side, probably to notify the Rockets to track down Mutwo's whereabouts. Hey, the battle between us is not over yet. Your Pokemon ran away, which means it lost until the fight. I won this gym battle. Gary shouted. As expected of Mr. Gary, you even defeated Mr. Itaki. What kind of Pokemon was Mr. Itaki's? It should be difficult to deal with. Joy asked curiously. Don't you know that bug-type skills restrain psychic-type skills? You're a gym trainer after all. Don't you know such basic things? Gary complained. Ding. Mission completed. Reward has been issued to the space backpack. Bama thought about it. He still needed the Tokiwa gym, so he couldn't break the rules. He took out an Earth badge from his pocket, threw it down from the high platform, and turned around and left. 1:30. Return to Pallet Town. Joy couldn't believe it. It was not uncommon for Pokemon to run away. Some powerful Pokemon would abandon their trainers when they found out that their trainers were very weak. However, this would only happen to weak trainers. Bammu was a trainer of the Tokiwa gym, so this shouldn't happen. Who knows what happened? It might be the Pokemon's own problem. Nurse Joy, please heal my spirits. Gary handed the defeated Pokemon to Joy. Okay, don't worry. Joy didn't ask any more questions and handed the Pokeball to Chansey and sent her to the medical treatment room for treatment. Gary looked at Joy, who had regained her usual expression. Although Nurse Joy was a nurse, they were all members of the Pokémon Alliance and even had connections with the Alliance investigators. Any information they found out in the city would be passed on to them. Gary had noticed Nurse Joy in Viridian City from the beginning and was sure that she must be a spy of the Pokémon Alliance, responsible for finding out any information in Viridian City. Otherwise, Joy wouldn't have told Gary about the Viridian Gym as soon as she met him. The purpose was to let Gary challenge the Viridian Gym to see whether Gary won or lost. Joy could ask about the battle situation to find out information. Gary also knew this, so he deliberately told Joy about his experience in the Viridian Gym. Gary was wondering if the Pokémon Alliance already knew that the Viridian Gym was an important base of Team Rocket and had already started investigating. After all, even Professor Oak's database had information about Mutwo because in the anime plot, there was a Jungian. Professor developed the Phantom System, which can create Phantom Pokémon. However, the prerequisite for creating Phantom Pokémon is to collect the complete data of a Pokémon before it can be transformed. Professor Oak specializes in studying Pokémon data. The laboratory database has a lot of complete research data on Pokémon. Professor Jung wanted to take Professor Oak's laboratory's research data to create various Pokémon. During this period, the Phantom System constructed Mutwo, which means that Professor Oak has studied Mutwo and even has some complete data on Mutwo. This shows one thing, that is, Professor Oak also participated in the creation of Mutwo. After all, it is impossible to collect the complete data of Mutwo from pictures alone. Only by participating in the research in person can the data of Mutwo be obtained. According to Gary's understanding, there are currently 2 Mutwos. One is created by Team Rocket, and the other 10 song is researched by a laboratory in the Unova region. Mutwo was born and spent most of its time sleeping. Team Rocket's Mutwo was asleep for 10 years before waking up. During this period, various basic tests could be conducted on Mutwo. Professor Oak should have participated in this period. Gary planned to ask Professor Oak whether he participated in the research of Mutwo after returning to Pallet Town. Afternoon, Eevee tilted his head, obviously not believing Gary's words. Pokémon will naturally become stronger after evolution. How could it be less powerful than the previous form? Hello, Professor Oak. Sabrina also greeted politely. Gary was worried at first that Mutwo would escape early and change the original plot of Ash and the others. It seems that as long as they don't interfere too much, it will still develop in the normal direction. Grandpa, I'll go to the backyard to see my Pokémon first, Gary said. Gary, you are finally back. Professor Oak was very welcoming to see his grandson. After all, Gary grew up with Professor Oak. As they were close, Professor Oak loved him very much. The next day, if you don't believe it, I will let you evolve later. You will know after you compete with it. Gary said, Eevee, I plan to evolve you into an ice Pokémon. What do you think? Gary said, no need to guess, it was caused by Ash and the Rocket Trio. Eevee nodded, indicating that it was okay. Although Sabrina was a little older than Gary, she was a psychic. If she and Gary had any results in the future, from the perspective of the family, it would not be a bad thing to have a younger generation who could psychic in the family. And Gary does not plan to give up this Eevee, and plans to evolve it into an ice Pokémon. Just in time, Gary's team lacks an ice Pokémon. Because this Eevee only has gym potential, Gary does not plan to breed this Eevee into a moon Pokémon. Eevee, long time no see. Are you doing well here? Gary squatted down and surrounded the gym potential Eevee. Gary and Sabrina rode back to Pallet Town. Because they didn't plan to collect Pokémon on the way, they carried out all the way and arrived at the Great Art Laboratory at dusk that day. Zero request for Flowers Zero. Don't be proud because you can evolve. Even if you evolve, it may not be its rival. Gary reminded. Gary and Sabrina were shopping in Viridian City and heard something. That is, the Viridian Gym exploded and the entire gym was blown up. Eevee. The Eevee on Gary's shoulder also agreed. It wanted to prove that Eevee was no worse than Eevee's evolved form. Gary nodded and went to Professor Oak's backyard with Sabrina. Gee, Grandpa, long time no see. Gary said, okay, go and see. Your Pokémon are very conscious and are training every day. Professor Oak said, everyone come out. Gary also released all the Pokémon on his body, Of course, Zapdos was not released for the time being. Both EV are Gary's Pokémon. EV, Chi. He. EV also showed off to the EV on Gary's shoulder, saying that it could finally evolve. The Rocket Trio is really lucky. Gary also admired the Rocket Trio. They were sent to the police station twice by him, and they were able to escape. They are worthy of being the destined villains. Chi. Being taunted like this, EV could only get angry. Not being able to evolve was indeed its pain point. After a while, two EV ran over. One EV jumped into Gary's arms, and the other EV saw that Gary's arms were occupied and directly hugged Gary's thighs. Sabrina, you are here too. Welcome. Welcome. Professor Oak was even happier to see Sabrina. After all, she was the girl brought back by his grandson. Eevee nodded frantically. It had wanted to evolve for a long time, but it couldn't evolve because it was carrying Everstone. Now that Gary wanted to let it evolve, it was eager to agree. 131. Ice Pokemon, this is the Ice Stone. You can take out the Everstone. Gary had already bought the top quality Ice Stone on the way here. Eevee shook his body, and a round gray stone fell out of his hair. Then, Eevee held the Ice Stone in his mouth, and in an instant, the light of evolution burst out from Eevee's body, and his body quickly grew to a medium-large size, and a cold air spread out. When the evolution light faded, an ice Pokemon with all blue hair, like a fox, appeared. LV38 Ice Pokemon 3/Quasi-Elite. Eevee successfully evolved into an ice Pokemon, and its potential was also improved to the level of Quasi-Elite. Pokemon, Ice Pokemon 3 Attribute. Ice Level, 38 Potential. Quasi-Elite Ability, Snow Hide. When it snows, it will assist the snow to hide the body of 220. Skills, Tackle, Tail Whip, Quick Attack, Baby Doll Eyes, Help, Swift Bite, Takedown, Ice Shard, Icy Wind, Ice Fong, Snow Scene. Intimacy, 255. Maximum value, 255. The Snow Hide ability in the game increases the dodge rate of Pokemon, but in reality, it can assist the reflection of the snow to cover itself, which is a very good ability. Ice Pokemon is lucky. After evolution, it awakens 4 ice skills. Snow Scene just happens to correspond to the ability of Ice Pokemon. Eevee also jumped off Gary's shoulder and challenged the Ice Pokemon. The Ice Pokemon showed a fierce look and accepted the battle. This Eevee is bred from Cinnabar Laboratory, and its species strength is naturally higher than that of ordinary Eevee. Gary introduced, "What? Eevee that cannot evolve." Professor Oak was surprised. Due to its own potential, Butterfree's improvement began to slow down after reaching level 30, but it is also very good to grow to level 40. LV40 Butterfree 3/Gym. Gary looked at the 3 Pokemon. Executor has grown to level 45, and its strength has improved quite well. Crobat also faced the same situation as Arcanine, but Gary used Crobat as a tool Pokemon. Black Eyes is a very useful skill to capture Pokemon. Blastoise took Eevee and the Ice Pokemon to fight in the open space next to them. However, Gary has a headache about Arcanine, because the Arcanine sent by Junsha is only at the Elite level, and the potential is only raised to the Gym level after using the top quality Firestone. Although the strength of the players in the Alliance Conference is uneven, the strength of the trainers who could be included in the top 32 is basically above the Gym level, and some trainers even have 1 or 2 quasi-elite level Pokemon. Just now, Professor Oak heard the sound of fighting in the backyard, so he went out to see and then saw Eevee and Ice Pokemon fighting. He was also very curious about where the Ice Pokemon came from, but as the battle between the 2 Pokemon became more intense, Eevee used one big move after another, which made Professor Oak dumbfounded. Eevee also ran to Gary, showing a smug expression and wanted Gary to praise it. As soon as he came back, Gary saw the Ice Pokemon in poor spirits and the energetic Eevee. Obviously, Eevee won the battle between the Ice Pokemon and Eevee. LV30 Venonat/Elite. Yes, I asked Professor Blaine for one to cultivate. During the cultivation process, I found that although this Eevee cannot evolve, It can master moves that EV cannot master. From the current stage, it seems that EV can master 9 attribute moves, and all 9 attributes correspond to the attributes of EV's evolutionary type. Gary said, because this EV 1.5 has a problem, that is, it cannot evolve, Gary said. LV45 Executor 3/Quasi-Elite Kami. Gary did not praise EV, but walked to the ice Pokemon and comforted him. It's just a loss. You're just not familiar with your newly evolved body. When you are familiar with it, Eevee may not be able to defeat you. And Gary also wanted to see other Pokemon. Oh, so amazing. It takes a long time for a Pokemon to learn a skill. I remember that it has only been a month since you arrived at Cinnabar Island. Professor Oak was puzzled. Gary didn't watch the battle either. The battle between his Pokemon was naturally left to them to solve by themselves. Gary, as a trainer, would not intervene. Dog trainer, you haven't come to see us for such a long time. You are surrounded by us. As for Venonat, Gary is just collecting shiny Pokemon, so it doesn't matter to him whether Venonat is strong or not. Moreover, Venonat lives very well here. Its body is much rounder than before, and it looks like it will evolve soon. Oh, this kind of EV was bred. How come I didn't know? Professor Oak also pays attention to research institutions in various regions. Since this EV is allowed to be sold, it will definitely be published in academia first. When Gary sent this EV here, he did not tell Professor Oak about EV's information. Professor Oak thought that Gary just captured another EV and wanted to cultivate it to other evolutionary types. Gary, your EV is so powerful. It can actually have so many skills. How did you breed it? At this time, Professor Ean suddenly said, Ice. The ice Pokemon nodded, saying that he would fight EV again after practicing hard. Gary looked at Pidgeot, Arcanine, Forsaken, Crobat, Magnemite, and they all lived very well. Pokemon with gym potential can grow to level 49 at most and cannot grow anymore after that. It is no problem to fight gym battles at this level, but it is a bit difficult to participate in the Alliance Conference. When he walked into the woods, he saw Butterfree, Executor, and Venonat. When they saw Gary coming, they immediately rushed out and surrounded Gary. However, Arcanine cannot be used for battles for the time being and can only be used for gym battles. After meeting with his Pokemon, Gary and Sabrina returned to Professor Oak's laboratory. The potential of Arcanine is not enough for Gary to use in battles in the later stage, and the props to improve the potential are very rare, but Gary likes Arcanine very much and does not want to give up this Arcanine. He can only wait for the Bronze Crown and other props to improve the potential in the future to slowly improve the potential of Arcanine. Professor Oak specializes in Pokemon research, so he has naturally studied Pokemon with high research value like EV. He knows very well that EV cannot master those skills. Anyway, he has never seen an EV with so many skills in his life. Okay, you guys go over there and fight. Stay away. Don't affect other Pokemon. Blastoise, you'll be the referee. Gary said, 132. Give Professor Oak a little shock. Yes, this EV has a strong learning ability. It can basically master a skill in a week. It has mastered 5 skills so far, and my Pokemon taught it. Gary said, it seems that the price of having such a high talent is that it cannot evolve. Professor Oak judged. Who knows? It just can't evolve with the Evolution Stone at present. Eevee also has 3 forms that do not evolve with the Evolution Stone: Sun Pokemon, Moon Pokemon, and Sylveon. Gary said, that's right, then you should breed this Eevee well. Although this Eevee is very strange, Professor Oak thinks it's nothing. It's still within the acceptable range. After all, it's not clear how far this Eevee can grow. By the way, Grandpa, when I was challenging the Tokiwa gym, I encountered a Pokemon I had never seen before. I took a picture of that Pokemon. Can you take a look? Gary said, oh, a Pokemon that you don't even know. Professor Oak was surprised because Gary had been with Professor Oak since he was a child and knew a lot about Pokemon. He was not only familiar with the Pokemon in the Kanto region, but also the Pokemon in other regions. He could be said to be an encyclopedia of Pokemon. Some rookie researchers were not as good as Gary. 02 inch show it to me, Professor Oak urged. Gary took out his mobile phone. This phone had been upgraded to a version that could take pictures. Although the pixels were a bit low, it could still take a clear picture of the target person. This Pokémon is... Seeing the photo, Professor Oak was also very shocked, and his pupils widened a little. Although the photo did not capture the original appearance of Mewtwo, it still captured the general outline. Gary has been paying attention to Professor Oak's expression, and he is sure that Professor Oak must know the existence of Mewtwo. I haven't seen this Pokémon either. Professor Oak shook his head seriously, indicating that he did not know this Pokémon. Grandpa, are you sure you don't know it? Gary asked. Although I'm a Pokémon professor, this world is full of all kinds of Pokémon, and I haven't seen all Pokémon, but these photos are very valuable for research, so leave them to me, Grandpa. Professor Oak took his phone and went to save the photos in his phone. Gary did not stop him. He just wanted to confirm whether Professor Oak knew the existence of Mewtwo. Now that Gary knew the answer he wanted, those photos were not that important. The key point is that Gary believes that even if Professor Oak tells what he knows about Mewtwo, it will not help Gary, unless Professor Oak is willing to create Mewtwo. However, it is too difficult to create Mewtwo. In addition to Mew's genes, Mewtwo also needs to combine the genes of other Pokémon. It is a Pokémon cloned from multiple Pokémon genes. Moreover, it takes a long time to create a Mewtwo, more than 10 years, and it is not guaranteed to be successful. Otherwise, with the technology of Team Rocket, it is impossible to create only one Mewtwo. In the evening, everyone had dinner together. Gary, there are still 2 months before the Indigo Plateau Conference. What are you going to do in these 2 months? Professor Oak asked. I plan to go to MT Silver to have a look. Gary said, the Pokémon in MT Silver are very powerful. Are you sure you want to go? Professor Oak said, MT Silver is located in the eastern part of the Johto region. It is a huge mountain range. Half of the MT Silver range is in the protected area, and the other half is in the wild area. There are very strong wild Pokémon in it. Ordinary trainers can easily be attacked by wild Pokémon in it. Yes, I plan to capture a Bangira, and I can only try my luck at MT Silver. Gary said, the wild area of MT Silver is not protected, and the Pokémon Alliance will not pursue any Pokémon captured by trainers here. The collection task issued by the system requires collecting Bangira, and Gary can only start from MT Silver because wild young Kira and Pupitar are too difficult to encounter. They will hide underground when they are born and will not come out from underground until they evolve into Bangira and start to live as they please. Bangira is a very strong Pokémon. Only trainers at the level of Elite Four can subdue it. Are you sure you can do it? Professor Oak said worriedly. Bangira is a quasi-god in the Johto region, as famous as Dragonite in the Kanto region, but Bangira is much more ferocious than Dragonite. Many trainers want to capture Bangira, but basically they never come back. Grandpa, when have you ever seen me do something I'm not sure of? Besides, I have a very powerful Pokémon in my hand. With my other Pokémon, it's not a problem to defeat Bangira. Gary said, oh, what Pokémon? Professor Oak looked confused. He had seen all of Gary's Pokémon. As a retired trainer, he knew that Gary's current main Pokémon was stronger than the gym trainer. But while Bangira are born quasi-elite level Pokémon, normal trainer is far from rival. Even the gym trainer can't deal with it without his main Pokémon. Not to mention Bangira, who can dominate MT Silver. His strength will only be more terrifying, and he may even have the strength of elite and champion level. Grandpa, have you forgotten that I captured a Pokémon before, but I never teleported it here? Gary took out an Ultra Ball from his pocket. Oh, Ultra Ball. Oak was startled. Gary usually used ordinary red and white balls to capture Pokémon. Suddenly, he took out the Ultra Ball, which meant that the Pokémon inside must be very powerful. Compared with ordinary balls, the Ultra Ball has a higher capture rate and is specifically used to capture some powerful Pokémon. Gary will definitely not use the Ultra Ball to capture mediocre Pokémon. This means that the Pokémon in this Pokémon is very strong, or Gary's trump card against Bangira. What Pokémon is in it? Professor Oak asked curiously. Let's go to the backyard. It's night now, and there are not many people. Gary said. Professor Oak was very confused. It's just a Pokémon. As for going to the backyard, and from what Gary meant, He deliberately waited until night to talk about this Pokémon. Professor Oak was getting more and more curious. The three of them came to the backyard. Come out. Gary threw the Pokeball. Great. A Zapdos with golden hair, standing up, came out of the Pokeball. Gah! Zapdos saw Gary and calmed down, silently looking at Professor Oak, whom he met for the first time. Get out of the way, Zapdos. Professor Oak was shocked. He could never have imagined that Gary could have subdued Zapdos. 133. Ash returns. Am I seeing things? Is this really Zapdos? Professor Oak unconsciously walked to Zapdos, not sure if he was seeing things. Of course it's Zapdos. Grandpa, if you don't believe me, you can touch it and see for yourself. Gary said, yes, touch it and see for yourself. Professor Oak was immediately delighted and immediately touched Zapdos' feathers. Zapdos didn't like being touched by strangers, but since Gary allowed it, he didn't say much. However, Professor Oak was a bit persistent. He touched it a few times and didn't stop, as if he wanted to touch Zapdos all over. So, Zapdos released a little bit of electricity, which directly numbed Professor Oak. Grandpa, are you okay? Gary was shocked and asked quickly. It's okay, just a little numb. This is really Zapdos. You didn't even tell me that you had conquered Zapdos. Professor Oak didn't care about it. He was Professor Oak, and he had to endure many Pokémon skills. I didn't tell you because I was afraid that you would be too excited. Besides, I've told you now. Gary said, quick, tell me how you subdued Zapdos. Tell me everything. Professor Oak just want to know how Gary subdued Zapdos. It was in Azure City. Gary told him about his experience at the Azure City power plant. You kid, you didn't tell me such an important thing. Professor Oak said dissatisfiedly. If I tell you, you will definitely ask me to teleport Zapdos here, so it's better not to tell you. Gary said, how long do you plan to stay in Pallet Town? Professor Oak asked. A week, then go to the Silver Forest. Anyway, the distance between the Silver Forest and the Indigo Plateau is very close. Just treat it as special training. A week? Do you want to stay for a while? Professor Oak said. He wanted to study Zapdos. Although he had seen Zapdos before, this was his first time to get so close to him. Grandpa, Zapdos doesn't like to be touched by strangers. You just saw it. If you want to study it, you need Zapdos to cooperate with you. Gary reminded. I know, I'll just take a look. Professor Oak said with a smile. He was now thinking about monitoring some data on Zapdos. Gary had a headache. It seemed that his grandfather had to endure the taste of lightning forging again. 3 days later, the door of Professor Oak's laboratory was pushed open, and Ash and the other two entered the room. Professor Oak, I'm Ash. Ash shouted. In the living room, Gary and Sabrina were sitting on the sofa drinking tea. After such a long time, you still haven't tamed your Charizard? Gary thought that the defeat would make Ash's Charizard behave better, but it seems to have no effect. The Indigo Plateau Conference will be held in 2 months. What you need to do now is to train your Pokémon well. Does your Charizard still listen to you now? Gary said, is that so? They were doing well at the beginning, but then they fell into a difficult battle and couldn't get the badge, so they gave up becoming trainers. Professor Oak said, wait. Gary immediately stopped Ash. Professor, I'm Ash. Seeing Professor Oak ignore him, Ash was speechless. Is he so easily ignored? Seeing Gary, Ash immediately became excited. The hope? Me? Ash was stunned. Ash, your Charizard doesn't listen to you? Professor Oak asked curiously. Poker. Ah, you are right, special training first. I must make Charizard listen to me. Ash nodded. Oh, isn't this the person who has been looking at my back? Gary said sarcastically. You're here. Togepi, long time no see. Professor Oak ignored Ash, turned to Misty, and greeted Togepi. Of course, similar to there are more than one mysterious space like Togepi Paradise. The exact number is unknown. Anyway, the number is not too many, but there is a Togepi Paradise in basically every region, but it has not been discovered yet. Okay. Stop arguing. You are the hope of Pallet Town. Okakuta immediately dissuaded. As people from the same town, Ash naturally knew the other two and asked, what happened to Xiao Huang and Xiao Cheng? Gary, there is an entrance to Togepi Paradise in Mirage Kingdom in Hoenn region. The entrance to Togepi Paradise is on the other side of a mirage, which is a very special parallel space. I'm just kidding you. Seeing you so healthy is more important than anything else. Come with me. Professor Oak brought Ash and the other two to the living room. Professor Oak said, "There are two people who will become Pokemon masters in the future. I am very relieved. People have not found out how Togepi was born so far, because Togepi was born in a parallel space, which is called Togepi's Paradise. Newly born Togepi Pokemon eggs will fall from the parallel space to the real world, and only human minds can hatch Togepi. After Togepi grows into Togetic in the real world, it will return to Togepi Paradise to reproduce, so people have never known how Togepi was born." Qian Li's Indigo Plateau Conference. Let's go now. Hearing about the Indigo Plateau Conference, Ash couldn't wait to participate and was about to leave. Because he was late at the beginning, Ash always thought that he was the last among the four rookies, but he didn't expect Xiao Huang and Xiao Cheng to give up. Yes, among the four rookie trainers who set out this year, only you two have collected 8 badges. Misty's Togepi was born in Togepi Paradise in Mirage Kingdom. What did you say? Professor Oak also agreed with Gary's words, and then said, "Ash, you have collected 8 badges. Gary has 12 badges. You both have the qualification to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference, but you must work hard and don't misunderstand. If they're willing to work hard, it will be no problem for them to collect 8 badges. Togepi is a mysterious fairy Pokemon. Currently, there is no information about Togepi, and no detailed information about them has been studied. It's their own problem. They didn't breed their Pokemon well." Gary knew the potential of Charmander and Bulbasaur very well. Even if they didn't reach the champion potential, they still had the potential to be quasi-elite. Yes, since Charmander evolved, it has become more and more disobedient, and it completely disobeyed after becoming Charizard. Ash said with a headache. Togepi also called out enthusiastically. "What's wrong?" 134. Compete to capture Pokemon this? Not yet. Although he didn't want to admit it, the current situation was like this, and Ash could only bow his head on the Charizard incident. "Let's not talk about Charizard's problem. You still have a fatal problem." Gary said. "Fatal problem? What problem?" Ash asked in confusion. Not only Ash, but even Xiaojang and Misty were confused. "Ash, you have been clamoring to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference since you came here. But are your Pokemon ready? You should not have properly bred the Pokemon you fostered in the laboratory." Gary said. This. Ash looked like he was awakened from a dream. Although the number of Pokemon he captured was not large, it was definitely more than 6. Ash had never bred those Pokemon and kept them in the Great Laboratory. Although Gary did the same, each Pokemon would be bred for a period of time, and even the Pokemon sent to Professor Oak's laboratory would have a customized training plan for them. Ash just handed the Pokemon to Professor Oak and asked him to take care of them. Fortunately, Professor Oak was a trainer before and knew how to arrange training for Ash's Pokemon. Otherwise, the levels of the Pokemon Ash put in Professor Oak's laboratory would definitely be very different. Not only the Pokemon in the 180 laboratory, but also the Pokemon on you. Among the 6 Pokemon, only Charizard and Pikachu are up to par. The other 4 Pokemon are not very good. Even Charizard doesn't listen to you. In the end, only Pikachu can be used. Gary said. This. Ash was speechless. Pikachu. Pikachu also shook his head helplessly. It also agreed with Gary's evaluation of Ash. At present, when Ash encounters any strong enemy, he can only get rid of it in Charizard. The key is that Charizard is still not obedient. In the end, Pikachu has to fight everything. No wonder Pikachu usually likes Actor. In the end, it is still Ash's responsibility. I already know this, and I have changed it. Ash said, "That's just breeding the Pokemon you carry with you. The Pokemon you put in the laboratory don't grow much." The Indigo Plateau Conference is not a simple battle of 1 or 2 games. The opening is a 3-on-3 battle, and there will be 5 rounds of competition. From the quarterfinals, it will be a 6-on-6 game. Gary preached. Even if you can enter the quarterfinals, you have to play 4 6-on-6 games every day. Do you think your current strength can withstand such a long ACF round-robin battle? So many games. Ash was also confused. He still didn't know the game process of the Indigo Plateau Conference. Hearing that there would be so many games, he knew that it would be difficult to rely on his own Pokémon. Then how many Pokémon do you have now, Gary? Ash asked back. Gary has captured a total of 25 Pokémon so far, Professor Oak said. Gary was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that he had captured such an indecent number of Pokémon. No, he had to capture Bangira quickly and cross the number of 25. You have captured so many Pokémon, it is impossible to train every one of them properly, said Ash. Of course not, but the Pokémon I plan to breed are all eligible to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference. Although some Pokémon are still in the breeding stage, there are still 2 months before the Indigo Plateau Conference. I will definitely be able to breed them. Gary said, I can do the same. Ash said. Gary smiled and said, in this case, let's go to the backyard to see our Pokémon and see the difference in size between the 2 Pokémon. Then let's compare them. Ash didn't believe that his Pokémon could lose to Gary in terms of size. Grandpa, let's go to the backyard. Okay. So everyone went to the backyard, and Professor Oak also released all of Gary and Ash's Pokémon for everyone to see. Ash captured a lot more Pokémon than Gary, a total of 38 Pokémon, while Gary only captured 24 Pokémon. However, of Ash's 38 Pokémon, 30 were Tauros, and the remaining 8 were different types of Pokémon. Of course, Gary also captured duplicate Pokémon, such as ancient Pokémon. Except for Aerodactyl, the other 4 ancient Pokémon have multiples. But in terms of types, Gary's Pokémon are naturally richer. What Pokémon is this? Misty pointed to the ice Pokémon with ice blue hair. It was the first time she had seen it. This is an ice Pokémon, an evolution of Eevee. Gary said, oh, in addition to fire Pokémon, lightning Pokémon, and water Pokémon, there are also ice Pokémon. Misty said in surprise, yes, Eevee has a total of 8 evolutionary forms. In addition to ice Pokémon and the 3 common evolutionary forms, there are also sun Pokémon, moon Pokémon, leaf Pokémon, and Sylveon. Gary said, there are so many. Misty, a half-baked person, also knew for the first time that Eevee has so many evolutionary forms. Even Ash was stunned. That Butterfree is a different color Pokémon. Ash quickly noticed Gary's Butterfree. Not only Butterfree, the color of that handball is also different from ordinary handballs. And the magnet of that Magnemite has no color, it's all gray. As Ash discovered, Xiao and Misty also noticed Venonat and Magnemite. Yes, these 3 are all different colored Pokémon, very collectible. Gary said, indeed, it is said that different colored Pokémon are hard to come by. We only encountered 1 different colored Butterfree at the beginning. Misty said, yes, different colored Pokémon can be sold at a very high price at auction. Xiao said, Ash was dazzled when he saw Gary's Pokémon. Each Pokémon was very handsome, and there were even 3 different colored Pokémon. In contrast, the Pokémon he had captured, excluding 29 duplicate Tauros, only captured 9 Pokémon in total. Ash, excluding the multiple Pokémon, you have only captured 9 Pokémon in total. Gary said. Ash was hit on the sore spot and said dissatisfiedly, although I have a lot of Tauros, it's not that I can't use them for fighting. Really? Gary looked at the Tauros running on the grass. There were 30 Tauros running together, which looked very spectacular, but the potential of these Tauros was not very good. Except for the Tauros leading the way, the rest of the Tauros are not very good, and their levels are probably very low. If you put them in the Indigo Plateau Conference to fight, it's just a waste of a position. Gary said, how do you know that the leading Tauros is stronger? Ash asked, stupid, Tauros are social animals, and the leader is the leader of the Tauros, so he is naturally the strongest. You are a Tauros trainer after all. Don't you even know this? Gary complained. 135. Heading to MT Silver. It can be seen that you didn't even take care of these 30 Tauros after you conquered them. You probably don't even know what skills the leading Tauros has mastered. Gary complained fatally. Ash sad face. Ash was a little embarrassed when Gary pointed out his problem so clearly. He really didn't know the strength of the leading Tauros. As long as he asked a little, he could tell which Tauros was stronger. Then he could breed them, and he wouldn't end up in a situation where he didn't know anything. Seeing Ash silent, Gary continued. I just asked casually, you really don't know. You don't even know what skills Krabby has. Ash's figure seemed to be getting smaller and smaller at this moment, and Gary seemed to be a class teacher criticizing his students. Professor Oak, is this okay? Xiao asked in a low voice. He felt that if he continued to criticize like this, Ash would almost become autistic. It doesn't matter. They have been like this since they were young, and what Gary said is not a problem. This is indeed the problem Ash is facing now. Professor Oak had a nonchalant attitude. He was used to this kind of scene. By the way, where's your Primeape? Xiao Mao asked. He remembered that he had successfully evolved Primeape into Forsaken in front of Ash and the others. Ash wanted to evolve his Primeape into Forsaken as well. So he asked Anthony to send Primeape to Professor Oak for evolution test. Logically, Infernape should be back. Well, after Primeape evolved into Forsaken, I sent it back to Mr. Anthony. Ash said. Gary had a headache. He had finally gotten Ash to give Primeape to him, but he gave it away again. You only have 9 Pokémon you can use. Don't you plan to let the Forsaken come back to help you attend the Indigo Plateau Conference? Gary said, You're right. I forgot about it. Ash scratched his head awkwardly. Gary had a headache. He thought that sometimes he should not care about so many things. Just motivate Ash appropriately. If he continued to care about it, his head would hurt. Don't worry about it for now. Gary, you promised before that if you defeat Blaine, you would let Charizard fight your Blastoise. Do you remember? Ash said. Why? Your Charizard wants to fight my Blastoise. Gary said. Of course. Ash said. Ash, Charizard is restrained by Blastoise. Why do you want to fight like this? Professor Oak asked in confusion. This explanation is too long. Anyway, it's just a fight, Gary. Do you agree or not? Ash said. Gary was silent for a while, and seeing that the system didn't respond, it seemed that the task could no longer be triggered. After all, Ash's strength has not improved much, and now he thinks it will be difficult for the system to issue tasks. Let's save the battle between us for the Indigo Plateau Conference. It's just right that you can use this reason to motivate Charizard. At least during the Indigo Plateau Conference, Charizard will listen to you for the time being. Gary said, Can it still be like this? Ash was a little unwilling, but thinking of his second challenge to Blaine, Charizard really listened to the instructions. But after defeating Blaine, Charizard returned to his old self. If you are strong enough, you will meet me at the Indigo Plateau Conference because I will not be eliminated. As long as you can keep winning, you can meet me. Gary said, Okay, I will win. Ash promised with a fist. Boom! Just then, a roar was heard in the distance. What happened? Where did the explosion come from? Everyone immediately looked into the distance and found a cloud of black smoke rising not far away. It was obvious that the direction where the black smoke rose was in the backyard of the laboratory. Go and have a look. Everyone hurried to the point where the explosion occurred. As soon as they got close, they saw 2 tufts of hair, blue hair and red hair. After a closer look, they found that they were Jesse and James. It's you, Team Rocket. Ash recognized the 3 lingering guys at a glance. Didn't I send you guys to prison? Why are you here? What's your purpose? Gary asked. Do I need to ask? They came to my door. We are back this time to steal that Pikachu. The Rocket team blew up the Tokiwa gym. To make up for their mistake, they must capture Ash's Pikachu and present it to Banmu. Meowth is talking. Professor Oak was surprised to see a talking Pokémon for the first time. He said, Well, can you please speak again? 0. Flowers 0. Okay, you guys listen attentively. Not only Pikachu, but all the Pokémon in the laboratory. We will take them away. Meowth Power Trip said, You are really brave to attack my Pokémon. Gary said coldly. However, just when Gary was about to take action, the sound of the earthquake came from not far away, and a group of Tauros ran over here and rushed straight towards the Rocket team. Bang! What a disgusting feeling. The Rocket trio was knocked away and disappeared into the distant sky. Goodbye. Misty was used to it and waved goodbye. What on earth are they doing here? Xiao was sweating profusely. He couldn't understand what the Rocket trio was thinking. There were so many Pokémon in the laboratory, they couldn't take them all by themselves. Besides, with Gary and Ash here, the Rocket trio was not rival at all. It's so boring, Grandpa. I plan to go to Indigo Plateau first. Gary just felt that it was a waste of time. It would be better to go to Indigo Plateau to train Pokémon and go to MT Silver Vein to look for the trace of Banjira. Ash, our duel will be saved for the Indigo Plateau Conference. Okay, I will definitely not lose then. Then work hard to train your Pokémon in the next 2 months. Goodbye. Gary waved goodbye to Ash and left with Sabrina. That afternoon, Gary and Sabrina left Pallet Town and headed for Indigo Plateau, intending to train their Pokémon in the MT Silver Vein. Indigo Plateau is not far from Pallet Town, and with the Aerodactyl, it only took them half a day to get there. After arriving at the Pokémon Center, Gary came to the public area and released Electabuzz. Wow! Electabuzz looked at the only Pokémon released, a little confused. Electabuzz, I plan to evolve you into Electivire. Do you want to evolve? Gary asked. Electabuzz can evolve once more, but it requires the Electorizer, which Gary naturally prepared 5. 136. MT Silver Wild Area, Banhilo Ow. Electabuzz was shocked. It didn't know it could evolve again. It was incredible. This is the Electorizer. As long as you hold it, you can evolve into the Electivire. Gary took out the Electorizer from his pocket. It was a square box the size of an adult man's fist, and it was a small Electorizer. Although the Electorizer is small, it has a huge amount of electrical power stored in it. Any Electro Pokemon likes it very much, but only Electabuzz can evolve with the Electorizer. Wow! Electabuzz nodded without hesitation. It didn't reject evolution. When Electabuzz was still an Elekid, it ran to absorb the lightning, and its purpose was to evolve. Now that it knows that it can evolve again, it will definitely not reject it. Most Pokemon will choose to evolve. Only a very small number of Pokemon are 050 and unwilling to evolve. Only Ash, the chosen one, will encounter so many Pokemon that don't like to evolve. Take it. Putting the Electorizer in Electabuzz's hand, Electabuzz clenched his fist and could feel the energy in the Electorizer. Electric currents rushed out of the Electorizer, and golden arcs instantly filled Electabuzz's body. Wow! Electabuzz screamed, and the golden arcs that filled his body were absorbed into his body. Suddenly, his body emitted an incandescent light, and the light of evolution filled his body. His body instantly rose to 1.8 meters, and his body became more sturdy. As the light of evolution dissipated, a bipedal Electivire appeared. Gary immediately used the Eye of Insight to check the attributes of Electivire. Pokemon, Electivire 8 attribute, electricity level, 38 potential, champion ability, electric engine. When attacked by electric type skills, it will not be damaged, but its speed will increase. Skills, Leer, Thunder Shock, Charge, Shock Wave, Electromagnetic Break, Swift, Thunder Punch, Discharge, Ion Deluge. Teaching skills, Mega Kick, Thunderbolt, Signal Beam, Dynamic Punch. Intimacy, 255. Maximum value, 255. Carrying props, Soothe Bell, not bad. Ion Deluge was awakened. Gary was quite surprised. Ion Deluge is a very powerful skill. It is a normal attack skill killer. This move can transform normal skills into electric skills. Electivire's ability is Electric Engine. If the opponent uses normal skills to attack Electivire, it will become an electric skill under the interference of Ion Deluge. In this way, Electivire can not only be immune to normal skill damage, but also increase its own speed. The increase is not that big, but it can be immune to normal attack skills, which is still very useful. Get familiar with your current body. You can release a stronger Thunder Shock. Although your body size has increased, your speed and strength have been greatly improved. Gary said, "Wow." Electivire nodded and then punched the air. The sound of the fist hitting the air was explosive, which showed how powerful Electivire was. Gary planned to breed Electivire in the near future. As for Magnemite, there was no rush for the time being. He could wait until the Johto region to breed it. As for the task of capturing Pokemon issued by the system, he could take his time and there was no rush at all. He rested on the Quartz Plateau for a night. The next morning, Gary rode Aerodactyl to the wild area of MT Silver. MT Silver is a protected area and normal is a wild area. The Pokémon in the protected area are protected by the Pokémon Alliance. Pokémon in the area are not allowed to be captured, and the inside is guarded by forest rangers. Pokémon in the wild area can be captured by Solation. If Gary wants to get Bangira, he can only start from this area. Moreover, Gary also found out that there are indeed several Bangira in Silver Vein, each active in their own area. It was already 10 a.m. when we arrived at the empty Silver Vein wild area. The sun was overhead, shining on the entire forest, but the leafage was too dense so the sun could not shine on the forest floor, and the situation in the forest could not be detected from sky. Gary came alone this time, dealing with only one Bangira, and did not need Sabrina's help. Moreover, Sabrina's psychic could not help much, as the Dark-type Bangira was immune to psychic. Gary took out 2 earplugs from his pocket and plugged them into his ears, then ordered, "Aerodactyl, use roar on the forest below." Aerodactyl roared growl at the vertical below. Weak Pokémon would run away immediately after hearing this terrifying growl. Roar is also a skill that can drive away rival, but only works on low-level or timid Pokémon. Facing powerful Pokémon, Roar will not have any effect. On the contrary, the opponent is too powerful and will anger the opponent. There are all kinds of restless sounds coming from the forest below, but no Pokémon launched a counterattack, which shows that there is no Bangira nearby. Bangira is a tyrant. In order to find rival, it will keep wandering in the mountains. It will ignore weak Pokémon when it encounters them, but it will definitely attack when it encounters a strong enemy. "Let's go. Let's try another place," said Gary. Aerodactyl deployed dual wing beat and flew in the direction Gary pointed. Every time it flew to a place, it would use roar to taunt. It also encountered Pokémon that actively responded to taunt, but it was not Bangira, so Gary ignored it and left. Soon, the man and the dragon arrived at the mountainside of MT Silver. Aerodactyl released growl again. Roar! A roar came from below. Is it Ursaring? Just now, Gary encountered many Ursarings while taunting, even an Ursaring with quasi-elite potential. Unfortunately, Gary had no interest in Ursaring, so he didn't try to capture it. Gary looked down and found that the growl came from a cave entrance. 1.8, it can be seen that the Pokémon lives in this cave. There are many Pokémon living in the cave. It may be Rhydon, and it is not clear whether it is Bangira. Aerodactyl, call again. Gary said. Aerodactyl roared again, growl. Roar! A roar was heard again in the cave, and soon, a giant beast with a green armored shell walked out of the cave. Every step the beast took, the surrounding ground trembled. LV60 Bangira 3/champion found it. The giant Pokémon that walked out of the cave was exactly what Gary was looking for. He thought it would take some time to find it, but he found it in one morning. It was also a champion potential Bangira. Good luck. 137 versus Banhila. Banhila also stared at Sky's Aerodactyl. This was a rival it had never encountered before. It could feel that Aerodactyl was not weak. Roar! Banhila roared at Sky's Aerodactyl. It was resting in the cave, but it heard the roar outside, and it was getting closer and closer. It was Banhila. How could it allow a Pokémon to dare to Solation taunt? Feeling the sound getting closer, Banhila naturally roared to warn the other party. Unexpectedly, the other party was so aggressive that it didn't retreat. So it had to come out and teach this ungrateful thing a lesson. Aerodactyl, let's go down, Gary said. Aerodactyl immediately landed more than 10 meters away from Banhila, and Gary jumped directly from Aerodactyl's back. Roar! Banhila was also surprised to see Gary. He didn't expect that he was a human. Although living in the mountains, Banhila has seen humans, most of whom are Pokémon hunters. Those hunters have also attacked Banhila, but they were all defeated by Banhila. Blastoise, this time the rival, is up to you. Gary threw the Pokeball. Great! LV54 Blastoise 3/Quasi-Legend. Blastoise's current strength of 0-2 has also reached the quasi-elite level. Although it is a little lower than Banhila in front of him, Blastoise has an attribute advantage and is still very powerful. Banhila, I want to conquer you. Let's have a fair fight. I will only use Blastoise to fight you. Gary said, Roar! Banhila roared in response to Gary, and then an orange light shot out from Bangila's mouth. Hydro Pump. Blastoise's barrel sprayed 2 hydro pumps to block the destruction of the death light, and the 2 skills collided. Bang! The power of the skills and moves of both sides was tied. Water Pulse. Bang! Bang! Blastoise's hydro pump fired 2 water balls, hitting Bangira one after another, knocking it back several meters. Roar! Bangira was hurt, roared, and sand flew up, and the surroundings were soon covered by sandstorm. Use Rain Dance. Gary would not let the sandstorm weather continue. In the sandstorm weather, the special defense of rock Pokémon is increased by 1.5 times, which is not low for Bangira. Although Bangira has a weak point, its double defense has reached 100. Kami. Blastoise immediately used Rain Dance, but the sandstorm on the field showed signs of disappearing slightly, and it was suspended again, and the dark clouds in the sky immediately dispersed. Blastoise. Oh no. Sand-raising ability. Gary instantly understood what was going on. Pokémon with the ability to change the weather have powerful suppressive effects when they use the weather-changing skills. Pokémon that can only change the weather cannot cancel the weather change by the opponent. This Banhila did not activate the weather just now. When he resisted Blastoise's 2 water pulses, he found that Blastoise was not weak and used Sandstorm to improve his special defense. Rock Pokémon's special defense ability will be improved in sandstorm weather. Roar! Banhila swung his tail and lashed at the ground. Bang! 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 Stone blades broke out of the ground and extended towards Blastoise. Flash Cannon. Blastoise squatted down and fired 2 silver beams from the barrel, shattering the stone blades that emerged from the ground and blasting them at Banhila. But these attacks did not have much effect on Banhila. Banhila also felt that the long-range attack was not Blastoise's rival, and ran towards Blastoise, using Earthquake to interfere with Blastoise while running. Use Rapid Spin and Water Flow Rupture. Blastoise immediately used Rapid Spin to levitate his body, and then a series of water curtains wrapped around the sides of the turtle shell, compressed into 2 water blades, and with the blessing of Rapid Spin, formed a rotating water blade and rushed towards Banhila. Banhila was fearless and used his body to withstand Blastoise's attack. The moment he came into contact with it, Banhila retreated violently, enduring the severe pain. Holding Blastoise's turtle shell tightly with both arms, and using superpower to stop Blastoise's rapid spin. Although it is very powerful, you're looking for death. Blastoise, use Hydro Pump with your mouth. Gary ordered. Although Banhila stopped Blastoise's rapid spin, the hole in Blastoise's head was facing Bangila's front. Blastoise poked his head out and opened his mouth to spray Hydro Pump. The powerful Hydro Pump knocked Banhila back far away. Blastoise can use water skills with more than just a barrel. Before it evolved, it had always used its mouth to use water skills, but the power was not as strong as the water skills used by the barrel. Roar! Banhila was very rage. It was the first time it encountered such a powerful rival. No matter what moves it made, it couldn't do anything to the opponent. Banhila, who was rage, immediately sprayed out a destructive death beam. Blastoise also used Hydro Pump without hesitation. Bang! The skills of both sides collided, and a ball of mist exploded. The next second, there were bursts of running sounds in the mist. Banhila broke through the mist and was wrapped in energy cyclones. He rushed towards Blastoise with an indomitable momentum. This is Bangila's Giga Impact. From this, it can be determined that this Banhila has very low combat experience. Although the Destruction Beam and Giga Impact are very powerful, they are both normal type skills. Banhila is a rock and evil dual attribute Pokemon, and using normal type skills does not have skill blessings. Blastoise used 940 Iron Defense to resist it. Dang! Blastoise used Iron Defense to resist the Giga Impact and was knocked out and stopped after breaking a tree. This move seems to be very powerful, but Blastoise did not suffer any damage. On the contrary, Banhila was temporarily unable to move because of the negative effects of using Giga Impact. Hydro Pump. Kami, Blastoise's barrel sprayed hydro pump. Bang! The powerful hydro pump hit Bangila's body, knocking Banhila back dozens of meters until it hit a dirt slope and stopped. Banhila shook his head and stood up immediately. Really tough. Gary's eyelids twitched wildly. This Banhila had been attacked by Blastoise 4 times in a row, but he could still continue to fight. The armor on his body was really tough. Roar! Banhila opened his mouth and spit up a black beam to attack Blastoise, and Blastoise immediately fired Flash Cannon to counterattack. Boom! The two skills collided and exploded. Then, Banhila dodged heavily, and the ground suddenly shook violently, and the earth collapsed. Gary immediately jumped onto Aerodactyl's back. Blastoise felt that this was Earthquake, and immediately jumped up and used Rapid Spin, rushing towards Banhila. During the charge, the water flow broke, turning into a Euro water blade to attack Banhila. 138. Conquer Banhila Roar. Banhila punched the ground, and stone pillars broke out of the ground. After hitting one stone pillar, it broke out from under Blastoise and hit the bottom of Blastoise, flipping it over. Banhila saw this and immediately sprayed Dark Pulse. Boom! Dark Pulse successfully hit. Kami, Blastoise panted, rolled over, and stood up. Gary didn't expect that Banhila could still fight back. It seems that this Banhila is not without intelligence. Water Pulse. Gary ordered. Bang! Bang! Blastoise's barrel shot out 2 water balls, attacking Banhila from different directions. Banhila didn't move. When Water Pulse approached, it swung its tail to disperse a water ball, and then punched another water ball. The action was done in one go, but Banhila was now facing Blastoise sideways, revealing a flaw. Kami, Blastoise seized a rare opportunity and used Hydro Pump. Bang! Banhila retreated violently, breaking several trees again before stopping. After Shell Smash, Hydro Pump at high speed to approach Banhila. Gary ordered. Blastoise's whole body was shining red, and his body retracted into the turtle shell. He used Rapid Spin, and the barrel sprayed 2 hydro pumps, rushing towards Banhila quickly. Banhila also endured the pain and used Stone Edge, but this time, Blastoise's speed increased a lot, and the stone blade that broke through the ground did not hit Blastoise. Blastoise rushed to Banhila, and the high-pressure hydro pump hit Banhila, taking Banhila back several meters until Tackle stopped on the mountain wall. Banhila still did not fall down, and when he saw Blastoise approaching him, he opened his mouth to bite Blastoise. Dynamic Punch. Gary issued an order. Blastoise's fist shone with white light, and the Sun Punch hit Bangila's head. Banhila was attacked by Dynamic Punch, and his huge body fell to one side, and his eyes finally closed. Fighting skills can cause 4 times the damage to Banhila. Dynamic Punch is the final killer that Gary prepared for Banhila. Kami, Blastoise looked at Banhila, who fell down and sat on the ground tiredly. This was the first time Blastoise experienced such a high-intensity battle. Thank you for your hard work. You did a great job. Gary praised Blastoise and then took out a Pokeball and threw it at Bangira. Bang! The Pokeball hit Bangira and put into the Pokeball. After shaking it 3 times, the Pokeball stopped shaking and successfully captured it. Gary picked up the Pokeball and checked Bangira's attributes. Pokémon, Bangira 3, Attribute: Rock, Evil, Level 60, Potential, Champion, Ability: Raising Sand will change the surrounding weather to sandstorm. Skills: Tackle, Leer, Rock Throw, Dig, Payback, Horrible Face, Rock Slide, Stomping Tantrum, Smackdown, Crunch, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, Iron Defense, Dark Pulse, Sandstorm, Destruction, Death Beam, Giga Impact. Intimacy, 110, maximum 255. As expected of a quasi-god, it has awakened so many skills. Gary commented with satisfaction. This Bangira has awakened 17 skills. Most of the powerful skills in Bangira's racial skills have been awakened. The only pity is that none of the 3 skills, Fire Fong, Ice Fong, and Thunder Fong, have been awakened. Moreover, Bangira's intimacy with Gary is not low. This is mainly because he defeated Bangira in an upright way. Otherwise, the intimacy would not be so high. Banjira itself likes to fight against strong enemies. It abides by the rule of winners and losers. If it loses, it will leave the territory. Blastoise, you should come back and rest. Gary took back Blastoise, then came to Aerodactyl's back and rushed back to Indigo Plateau at full speed. Gary, did you capture Banjira? After returning to Indigo Plateau, Sabrina asked Gary about the progress here. Lucky, I found Banjira soon after I went there. I have already captured it, and it is currently being treated at the Pokémon Center. Gary said, You met it so quickly. Sabrina was surprised. She just asked casually, but she didn't expect Gary to actually capture it. This speed is too fast. Banjira is a very powerful Pokémon. There's basically no rival in the wild. As long as you're sure there is a Banjira, it is easy to find. Gary said, Look at those illegal Pokémon hunters. Almost everyone has a Banjira. Of course, it is not that Banjira is very common, but that Banjira is easy to find. As long as it is confirmed that the surrounding terrain is damaged, it can be basically determined that it was caused by Banjira. In this way, as long as Banjira is not injured, just taunt it and you can lure Banjira out. Banjira is not very strong. You must have spent a lot of effort, right? Sabrina said, Yes, it is indeed difficult to deal with, but that Banjira is wild and lacks combat experience. He suffered a lot in the battle with my Blastoise and finally lost. Gary said, I didn't expect you to beat Banjira without even using Zapdos. Your Blastoise has become stronger again. Sabrina sighed. Sabrina watched Wartortle grow into Blastoise. She didn't expect that in just a few months, Blastoise could defeat the quasi-god Pokémon alone. Although he relied on the attribute advantage, it was still very impressive to reach such a level in a short time. It's okay. I'll let you see Banjira later and see if your Psychic is effective against Banjira. Gary said, Sabrina has never used Psychic on a dark Pokémon before, and she also wants to try whether her Psychic is effective on a dark Pokémon. After lunch, Gary's 3 Pokémon were all healed. After getting the Pokeball from Nurse Joy, Gary and Sabrina came to the public area. Banhila, come out. Gary opened the Pokeball in his hand and released, Good job, Banhila. Roar. Banhila came out of the Pokeball, showing a rebellious attitude, just glanced at Gary and ignored him. Sabrina saw Banhila and was slightly surprised by Banjila's huge body. Although Banhila was not very tall, he was very strong and full of explosive wildness. Sabrina also tried to use Confusion to restrain Banhila, but found that Confusion would instantly fail when it landed on Banhila, as if Banhila was not there. It's really useless, Sabrina exclaimed. That's natural. Dark Pokémon are immune to Psychic. Unless Miracle Eye is used, Psychic has no effect on Dark Pokémon. Gary said, Banhila. Gee. Suddenly, a voice came, and a man wearing a black cape with a red cape came over. You are Lance. Gary recognized the other person's identity. 139, Elite Four Lance. Hello, it seems you know me. Lance said, The Kanto Alliance headquarters is in Indigo Plateau, so it's not strange for Lance to appear here, but Lance is a workaholic. In addition to being an Elite Four, he is also the champion of the Johto Region Alliance and an investigator. Lance, is that Elite Four Lance? Even Sabrina, a homegirl who usually doesn't go out, knows Lance. Yes, I'm Lance. Are you training Banjira here? Lance asked. No, I just let Banjira out. After all, it was just captured not long ago. Gary said, Oh, did you capture it in MT Silver? Lance, as a natural, knew that Banjira was in MT Silver near Indigo Plateau, and only Banjira there could be captured. I met it in the wild area of MT Silver, and it didn't violate the Pokémon Protection Act. Gary gave a detailed reminder to avoid Lance's misunderstanding. Don't get me wrong, I didn't mean to interrogate you. I just wanted to capture Banhila recently, so I came to see your Banhila. Lance explained. Gary? Sabrina? Ah, Mr. Lance? Aren't you a Dragon Elite? Gary said. Lance knew what Gary meant and explained, Although I like Dragon 040 series Pokémon, I will also breed Pokémon that are similar to dragons. Is Banhila similar to a dragon? Sabrina pointed at Banhila, and it didn't seem to be related to a dragon. Look, Banhila looks like a lizard. Lance said, Gary and Sabrina looked at Banhila. Although it was a bit larger, it did have the characteristics of a lizard. From the ancient fossils, ancient dragons were similar to lizards, so Banhila must have been related to dragons in ancient times. It's not impossible to say that there is dragon blood in its body. Lance judged. Gary broke out in a sweat. Although Banhila looks like a lizard, the egg group is a group of monsters and has nothing to do with dragons. Although Banhila can learn some dragon-type skills, it is not very related. However, Lance in the special episode did capture a Banhila, and Lance's own Pokemon team is not all dragon-type Pokemon. He also has a red Gyarados, which he used in the Masters tournament and almost every battle. But Gary is here now, and Gary has included the red Gyarados in the capture task issued by the system. Lance can use the red Gyarados in the Masters tournament, which means that the potential of the red Gyarados is not lower than that of the champion. So Gary can only give birth to Lance. Is that so? Gary did not spoil it. Since Lance thinks so, let him think so. By the way, what's your name, boy? Lance suddenly asked. My name is Gary, and I plan to come here to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference. Gary said. Hearing that Gary was here to attend the Indigo Plateau Conference, Lance looked at Banjira again and said, as long as you don't encounter a water field, your Banjira should be able to help you reach the finals. The Indigo Plateau Conference has field restrictions. In the first 4 rounds, 10 fields will be randomly selected from the 4 fields of water, grass, ice, and rock for battle. The field is randomized after the players go on stage, so the 3 Pokemon prepared by the trainer must not all be of the same attribute. Otherwise, if a player prepares 3 rock and ground Pokemon and is randomly in a water field, he can surrender directly. Therefore, in the first 4 rounds, players must prepare at least 1 water Pokemon to avoid being randomly in a water field. Of course, if a player does not have a water Pokemon, it can only be considered bad luck for the player, and he can only pray that he does not encounter a water field. Are you so sure, Mr. Lance? Gary said. According to memory, the players in the Indigo Plateau Conference were not that strong. At least the players before the top 16 were not good enough. As for the strength of the players in the finals, Gary was not sure. However, as long as there was no legendary Beastman who showed up in the middle, it would not be a problem to win the championship. My vision is fine. As long as there were no ACF2 strong players participating in this Indigo Plateau Conference, you could even win the championship. Lance said, this kind of late-blooming Pokemon rarely appeared in the Alliance Conference. Once it appeared, it would definitely make it to the full player battle and would most likely enter the finals. Then, Mr. Lance, can you play against me? Gary asked. As soon as he said this, Lance was stunned for a moment, and even Sabrina was very surprised. Even though Sabrina had never fought with the Elite Four, she knew that the strength of the Elite Four was far beyond that of ordinary trainers, and they were the top of all trainers. With Gary's current strength, it is impossible for him to be a rival of the Elite Four, especially Lance is not just an Elite Four. He has the strength of a champion. Are you sure you want to fight me? It was the first time that Lance was challenged by a teenager. Gary was too young, at most 11 years old. Yes, you can do it, Gary nodded. Okay, how do you want to fight? Lance asked. Ding. Task released. Defeat Elite Four Lance / reward. High-level rare Candy X 10. The system suddenly released a task. As expected, Gary was calm. He challenged Lance just to see if it would trigger the system to release the task. It seems that the bet was right. However, this task is very difficult and Gary cannot complete it at present. Mr. Lance, let's have a one-on-one duel. Gary knew that he was not a rival, so there was no need to fight multiple Pokemon. One-on-one was enough. Okay. Lance nodded and said, then let's fight here. Okay. Sabrina looked at the two of them in surprise. She didn't expect Lance to agree to Gary's request for a fight. Although she felt that there was a huge gap between the two, Sabrina was also curious about whether Lance's strength was as strong as on TV. Then let's start Go Dragonite. Lance directly sent out his trump card Pokemon. Great. A fat Dragonite walking on 2 feet appeared. LV75 Dragonite 3/champion. Seeing Lance's Dragonite, Gary was a little surprised, but he also felt that it was normal for Dragonite to have such strength. After all, it was the champion of the Johto Region Alliance, and had the strength of a champion. Blastoise, you go. Gary did not choose to use Banhila and Zapdos, but sent out his Earl Dervish Pokémon, Blastoise. Crack! Blastoise appeared, looking at his rival seriously, and seeing Dragonite's silly expression, he thought Dragonite was not very strong. Gary, it's time to start. You attack first. Lance took the initiative to give up the first attack. Okay, then I won't be polite. Blastoise, use Hydro Pump. Gary ordered. 140. Blastisev's Dragonite. Gary wanted to see how big the gap between Blastoise and the champion-level Pokémon was, so he ordered, Blastoise, use Hydro Pump. Crack! The barrel of Blastoise sprayed Hydro Pump. Block it, Lance said. Dragonite stretched out his arms and blocked the powerful Hydro Pump. Crack! Seeing that Dragonite blocked his Hydro Pump so easily, Blastoise immediately increased the strength of the Hydro Pump and pushed Dragonite's body back a little bit. But it was only pushed back a few meters before it was exhausted. Seeing his Dragonite being pushed back several meters by Hydro Pump, Lance praised, "Your Blastoise breeder is very good, but it's a pity that it's too early for you to challenge me now." Dragonite, Dragon Pulse. Dragonite opened his mouth and spit up a colorful energy, which turned into a dragon shape and bit towards Blastoise. Hydro Pump. Blastoise immediately used Hydro Pump to counterattack, but Hydro Pump was instantly shattered by Dragon Breath energy and hit Blastoise. Boom! Dragon Pulse exploded, and Blastoise was blown away and fell on the field. With just one blow, Blastoise was seriously injured and even had difficulty standing up. Oh, he didn't fall down. Lance was surprised. For a trainer at the level of Indigo Plateau Conference, any Pokémon of Lance can be killed instantly by Solation. I didn't expect Blastoise to resist his Dragonite's Dragon Pulse. The battle ends here, I lose. Gary took the initiative to admit defeat. Kami. Blastoise was very surprised. It had never lost before, so how could it let Gary propose to admit defeat? Don't be stubborn. I know you're not convinced, but Mr. Lance's Dragonite is very strong, and you can't deal with it now. Gary walked to Blastoise and comforted him. I just want to see the gap between you and Dragonite this time. Now is not the time to decide the winner. Kami. Blastoise nodded and endured Dragonite's Dragon Pulse. It felt that it could not bear it at all. It just fired Dragon Pulse, and Hydro Pump reduced some damage. If it really wanted to take it completely, it would not be able to bear it at all. You care about your Pokémon very much. I hope to meet you in the Masters Tournament in the future. I will leave first, Lance said and left on Dragonite. Gary returned to the Pokémon Center and asked Nurse Joy to treat his Blastoise again. After that, Gary came to the public area again and released Banhila. Come on, Banhila, put this in your carrying space, and I will teach you some new skills. Gary took out Soothe Bell and said, Huh. Banhila looked at Gary with a puzzled look. Teach yourself skills? Really? Although Banhila was confused, he didn't doubt it too much. After all, he had been subdued by this kid. At least for now, this trainer was qualified, so he put Soothe Bell into the carrying space. Gary reached out and touched Bangila's hard body and began to teach skills. Roar! Banhila thought Gary would release other Pokémon to teach him skills, but he suddenly awakened a skill, Fire Blast. Don't be too surprised, there are more, Gary said, and taught Banhila all the skills that can be taught. In an instant, Banhila mastered the 3 skills of Thunderbolt, Dynamic Punch, and Mega Kick. Banhila couldn't believe that he had awakened 4 skills in an instant. This is the ability of the trainer. It's so scary. Pokémon, Banjura 3 attribute. Rock, evil level, 60 potential. Champion ability. Raising Sand. Will change the surrounding weather to sandstorm weather. Skills. Tackle, Leer, Rock Throw, Dig, Payback, Scary Face, Rock Slide, Stomping Tantrum, Smackdown, Crunch, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, Iron Defense, Dark Pulse Sandstorm, Destruction Beam, Giga Impact. Teaching skills, Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, Mega Kick, Dynamic Punch. Intimacy, 190, full value 255, carried props. Soothe Bell Banjura's intimacy with Gary also increased to 190. At this value, Pokémon basically plays the trainer's orders. Be good to me, I will make you stronger, said Gary. Roar. Banhila still had a rebellious expression. It was quite bored in the mountains. It was nice to go out for a walk. You must be hungry too. Eat something. Gary took out an energy block from his pocket. This energy block was specially prepared for the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus Rex and was very suitable for the taste of rock Pokémon. Zero asking for flower zero. Roar. Banhila looked at the square brown block in Gary's hand and doubted whether it was edible. Try it. Although these two things are small, they're very filling. Eating them for a long time can make your armor harder. Gary said, "Huh." Hearing that the hardness of the armor can be enhanced, Banhila did not hesitate at all, lowered his head and opened his mouth, and Gary threw 2 energy cubes directly into Bangila's mouth. Banhila chewed it twice, swallowed it into his stomach, and immediately felt full, showing an incredible look. Usually in the wild, Banhila has to eat a lot of food to fill his stomach. I didn't expect that 2 small things could feed himself. It's amazing. Gary is a breeder, and his talent in breeding is top-notch. These energy cubes were developed by Gary since he was a child. The feed ratio and energy cubes eaten by the Pokémon in Professor Oak's laboratory are also Gary's formula. In the following time, Gary stayed in Indigo Plateau and sent all the powerful Pokémon in his hands back to Professor Oak's laboratory for training. Gary mainly trained those Pokémon with lower levels. Banhila stayed behind for individual training. Although Banhila is of a high level, it is a wild Pokémon are very weak in combat, and even the Stone Edge mode is only a single one, and there is no scattered Stone Edge attack, so special training is needed. Gary originally thought about whether to intervene in the affairs of the new island, but when he thought about the encounter with Mutwo in Viridian City, he did not trigger the system to release the task. Based on the experience of conquering Zapdos, to trigger the task related to Mutwo, Gary may need to conquer Mutwo to trigger it. Conquering Mutwo is not like an old man eating arsenic and complaining about his long life. For Pokémon of Mutwo's strength level, it is enough to befriend them. As for conquering them, it is just wishful thinking. So Gary has been training Pokémon nonstop for the past 2 months. All the Pokémon with elite potential, except Electivire and EV, have been upgraded to level 50, which consumed several intermediate rare candies. The rest of the Pokémon are growing at a normal pace. Although the level has not increased much, it has increased by a lot on average. 141. Indigo Plateau Conference Opening Ceremony in the Indigo Plateau Conference Athletes Village. Tomorrow is the opening day of the Indigo Plateau Conference, but before the opening ceremony, the torch relay will be held first, and the contestants have applied to be torch leaders. Gary did not join in the fun, but stayed in the athlete village and watched the torch relay on TV. This naturally saw Ash and the other 2 become torch leaders. It's really conspicuous wherever they go. Gary exclaimed, "Huh, how did Ash and the others become torch escorts?" Sabrina was also surprised. Ash always likes to try new things. I guess he met someone on the road who was carrying the torch and asked to be a torch escort. Gary said, at dusk, Ash and his party arrived at the athlete village. Gary was naturally in the player village. When he saw Ash, he immediately complained, "Ash, you are so slow. I thought you were going to be late again." "Gary," Ash said, "how could I be late for such an important game? I will definitely fight to the end and defeat you in this game." Gary smiled and took a look at the Pikachu on Ash's shoulder. LV48 Pikachu 3/champion. The last time I saw Pikachu was only level 40. It has been 8 levels in 2 months. This improvement speed is not slow. It can be seen that Ash has spent a lot of time training Pokémon in the past 2 months. Really? Then you have to work hard. I'm leaving first. Gary didn't say much and turned around and left. "Why are you leaving?" Ash looked puzzled and said, "Strange. Gary usually takes the opportunity to ridicule me. Why did he suddenly change his nature?" "Ash, you're really slow. It's been so long. Don't you see that Gary has been encouraging you?" Misty said, "Is there?" Ash recalled the past and didn't feel that Gary was motivating him at all. Every time he had a little problem, he would always mock him in a sarcastic way. Although Gary did mock, most of the time he was motivating you. Every time you were too distracted, Gary would remind you. Xiao Jiang interrupted. Yes, whether it was in the hot spring town or Cinnabar Island, Gary would point out many problems of yours. Didn't you notice? Misty said, although Ash was slow to react. After a journey and encountering so many things, and after Xiao Jiang and Misty's reminders, he thought carefully and realized that it was really the case. Gary, this guy. Ash didn't know what to say, but he understood Gary's good intentions. The second day, p.m., 9 o'clock, the opening ceremony of the Indigo Plateau Conference began. A total of 256 contestants participated in the competition. At this moment, all the contestants appeared in the venue of the Indigo Plateau Conference and lined up in an orderly manner. Bang! 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 Fireworks exploded. A girl with short red hair ran into the venue, holding a torch in her right hand. Look, the torch runner is coming. Before this, the torch, which had been passed by hundreds of people, finally arrived at the conference and was heading towards the torch stand in the venue. Host explained. The girl jogged all the way through the venue, past every contestant, and climbed onto the torch stand. Just as she was about to throw the torch into the huge torch, two people in ancient Greek costumes appeared on the torch stand and blocked the girl's way. The girl was a little confused. She had been told to light the huge torch in the venue. So how could there be two more people suddenly? Even the host was confused, but now it was the opening ceremony, and in the face of such an emergency, he had to continue and forced an explanation. It seems that there is a woman who is responsible for lighting the fire, and she should give the holy net to the other party. The girl complained in her heart. This was the Indigo Plateau Conference. Her family had used a lot of connections to give her the opportunity to become the igniter. Now that she was robbed in the middle of the game, she was naturally very angry. But now it was a live broadcast, and the entire Kanto region would be watching this game. The girl dared not be willful and could only obediently hand over the holy fire to the roadblocker in front of her. Wait a minute, you can't give the holy fire to her. At this moment, Ash suddenly ran up to the holy fire platform and shouted loudly. The girl immediately turned around, thinking that there was a turn for the better. But the next second, Jessie grabbed the holy fire from the girl's hand. Too late. Jessie snatched the holy fire and immediately stepped back, tearing off her clothes at the same time, revealing the Rocket team's uniform. So brave. Gary looked at the Rocket trio that suddenly appeared and finally understood how the Rocket team in the animation world gradually fell into decline. This is the Indigo Plateau Conference. The Rocket team is so blatantly making trouble here, which is a slap in the face of Alliance. How can Alliance not cause trouble for the Rocket team? From this point of view, the Rocket trio cannot be caught, and it may be because of them that the Rocket team in this world is gradually declining. After careful calculation, the two big money-making projects of the Rocket team in Kanto region seem to have been ruined by the Rocket trio. Ash was about to let Pikachu stop the Rocket team, but James released the double egg gas and stopped Pikachu with smoke. Jessie took the opportunity to throw the torch into the big torch, and Moltres' flame instantly ignited the huge torch. Immediately afterwards, a giant grasshopper-like robot appeared and carried the huge torch on its back. Oh no, something big happened. The Holy Flame platform was taken away. Host exclaimed. The audience around was confused, not knowing what was going on. Some of the more creative ones thought it was a performance at the opening ceremony. However, as the Rockets jumped into the venue with their robots, the audience realized that something was wrong and jumped out of their seats. Pikachu used Thunderbolt. Ash also ordered Pikachu to attack the Grasshopper robot, but the Grasshopper robot had an anti-electric coating on its surface and ignored Pikachu's Thunder Shock degree. Bulbasaur used Razor Leaf 1.5. Ash sent Bulbasaur to deal with it, but Bulbasaur's Razor Leaf was burned to ashes by the holy fire. What? Ash didn't expect that the robot made by the Rockets this time was so strong, and the Rockets were manipulating the robot to attack Gary. Roar! At this moment, a huge one rushed over. When the Rockets heard the noise, they saw a giant bipedal beast rushing towards the Grasshopper robot. What kind of Pokémon is that? I don't know. I've never seen Meowth before. The Rockets couldn't tell what Pokémon was charging at them, but they believed that the robot they had built could definitely withstand the impact. Dang! The giant beast tackled the grasshopper robot, and the robot's body tilted to one side. 142. Gary takes action. How is it possible? What kind of power is this? James and Meowth, the two engineers, couldn't believe that the Pokémon had such a terrifying power. It directly knocked the grasshopper robot away. The grasshopper robot was knocked away, and the Holy Fire platform also fell down and was caught by Banhila and slowly placed on the ground. At this time, the grasshopper robot made by Team Rocket was unable to move, and the position where it was tackled by Banhila had sunk in and even had many holes. Banhila, Stone Edge. Gary ordered. Roar. Banhila roared, and countless stone blades condensed around him. As Banhila manipulated them, they quickly flew towards the grasshopper robot. The stone blades were very sharp, and they opened a huge wound on the grasshopper robot. The D2 hit used the internal engine. Boom! The grasshopper robot exploded, sending Team Rocket to the distant sky and completely disappeared. After driving Team Rocket away, Gary continued to order, Banhila, put the sacred flame stand on the high platform. Banhila looked at the Holy Fire platform beside him, lifted up the huge Holy Fire platform, climbed up the stairs step by step, came to the high platform, and threw the Holy Fire platform onto the high platform. Bang! The Holy Fire platform fell right on the high platform. Because the high platform was broken, the Holy Fire platform could only be tilted, but it did not affect the viewing, but it had a kind of irregular beauty. That Banhila is so powerful. Whose Pokemon is that so powerful? Such a strong power, such a large Holy Fire platform can be easily lifted. The audience was shocked by Bangila's terrifying power. Gary's Banhila is now level 61, and its strength has reached the elite level, which can almost be said to be stable over the 255 trainers here. Banhila, come back. After taking Banhila back, Gary returned to the trainer team and waited for the Alliance to deal with it. Although Team Rocket caused a commotion, it did not cause any damage. Although the platform of the Holy Flame was damaged, it was not completely destroyed. The progress of the Indigo Plateau Conference must not be suspended because of this incident. The official side discussed for a quarter of an hour and decided to let the opening ceremony continue. Now, the opening ceremony will start again. First, please invite Damalanki Badge to give the opening speech. Damalanki came to the podium and gave a speech. Pokemon Alliance Conference is a place for trainers who really love Pokemon battles to learn from each other. The flame of Moltres will protect us. Trainers, please fight upright and never leave regrets. Here, I declare the Indigo Plateau Conference officially open. After the speech, the audience cheered and splashed. This annual grand event is very much anticipated. The opening ceremony ended, and the players who participated in the opening ceremony also returned to the players' village to rest. The official competition will start tomorrow afternoon. Before the game starts, the players have to go to the center of the main venue to draw lots. First, randomly select the battle venue, and then randomly compete. After the 5th round, the competition venue will be moved to the main venue, which is the venue for the opening ceremony. The rest of the games will be held in the surrounding small venues. The next day, after Gary and Sabrina finished breakfast, they came to the center of the venue to draw lots. After handing their Pokemon Pokédex to the staff lady, the lady took out a button and asked Gary to choose the venue. There are 4 venues in total, and each venue will be played in the first 4 games. Gary didn't care about the battle venue. He waited for the screen to roll out and pressed the button. Then the red light stayed on the iceberg symbol. It's the ice venue, and your rival is Kawas. The staff said. Gary also saw the appearance of Kawas, a girl with blue hair, who looked like a trainer specializing in water. The venue is at Venue B, and the time is 1 p.m. After deciding on the venue for the competition, Gary came to the teleporter, called Professor Oak's laboratory, and asked for several prepared Pokemon. During the competition, trainers need to select 3 Pokemon in advance and make the Pokeball public. Only Pokemon in the public Pokeball can be used for battle. Because it is an ice venue, Gary chose 3 Pokemon, Arkham, Arcanine, and Bangira. The reason why he chose Bangira is mainly because he is worried about a failure and needs a backup. Even if Gary is confident that he can win 3 games in a row, he will not do so. He must keep a backup, because many trainers used newly captured Pokémon in the preliminary rounds during the Alliance Conference due to a conflict of confidence, and finally lost directly. Ash is the best example. In addition to the Indigo Plateau Conference and the Silver Conference, Ash used Pokémon captured in the region in the subsequent Alliance Conference, except for Pikachu. This is one of the important reasons why Ash could not win the championship. Gary, do your best. After sending all the Pokémon to Gary, Professor Oak also cheered for Gary. Grandpa, don't worry, I will win the championship. Gary said, okay, then I look forward to you winning the first Alliance Conference for Pallet Town. Professor Oak said with a smile. Professor Oak is very proud of his grandson. 183 has been able to assist in his experiments since he was a child. After becoming a trainer, his strength is far beyond the training of the same stage. Especially after studying Gary's Pokémon for so long, it can be seen that if Gary puts most of his Pokémon on the Indigo Plateau Conference, he can definitely make it to the late stage of the game. Not to mention that Gary also has a legendary Pokémon. As long as Gary is willing to use Zapdos in front of the world, the Indigo Plateau Conference will be easy to win. After the call ended, Gary and Sabrina wandered around the contestant village. The contestants' food and accommodation in the contestant village are free, but if they want to shop, they need to pay for it themselves. After lunch, Gary and Sabrina were drinking afternoon tea at the table outside. Coincidentally, they met Ash and his 3 friends who had just finished drawing lots. Gary, when is your match? Ash asked immediately after seeing Gary. 1 p.m., what about you? Gary said, 1:30 Field A. Which field did you randomly go to? Gary asked, Waterfield. Ash responded, your luck is really bad. It seems that you may be eliminated in the first competition. Gary commented, what did you say? Ash originally wanted to get along with Gary in a friendly way, but this guy said that he would be eliminated. It was really annoying. Gary didn't care about the angry Ash and asked directly, the water field is all water. How many water Pokémon do you have? 143. The first match. On the ice field. I have Squirtle. Ash said, you really give me a headache. The game is 3 versus 3. Are you going to rely on a Squirtle? And don't you have Krabby? Gary said, yes, and Krabby. Ash immediately remembered that he had captured Krabby. Your Pokémon is really pitiful. If Krabby knew that you forgot it, I don't know how sad it would be. Gary complained. Ash knew that he was in the wrong, so he could only remain silent. My game is about to start, so I won't talk to you anymore. You should work hard and don't be eliminated. Gary waved his hand and followed Sabrina to leave here and head to the B field. Let's go, I'll teleport Krabby over. Ash felt that Gary was right. Squirtle alone was definitely not enough. A water-type Pokémon was needed. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the first round of the Indigo Plateau Conference officially began, and the 4 venues were competing at the same time. In the ice venue, Gary and his rival Kawas were already standing in the command area of the venue. The reporters around were all holding cameras to shoot the 2 of them. Because it was the first round of the Indigo Plateau Conference, each media needed to collect a lot of materials to publish news, so they must shoot well. And Gary was the celebrity of this Indigo Plateau Conference. Because he signed up for the competition with his real name, the name Gary Oak would naturally be noticed by those reporters who were more sensitive than a dog's nose. On the way, when they found that Gary was heading to the ice venue, many media had already come here to shoot. In the referee area of the battle venue, the referee stood in the middle and announced, there are only 3 Pokémon in use. The first game of the ice venue has begun. Please send out Pokémon from both sides. Go Jinx. Arcanine, you go. Gary and Kawas threw Pokeballs at the same time. Kawas sent out Jinx, an ice-type Pokémon that is adapted to the ice field. Jinx is a humanoid Pokémon with long golden hair. If you only look at the back and stand a little further away, you will really think it is a blonde girl. Gary started with Arcanine. After all, the field is an ice field, and Rival is likely to send out ice-type Pokémon. Fire-type Pokémon just restrains ice-type Pokémon. And Gary also predicted correctly. Kawas really started with an ice-type Pokémon, which was just restrained by Arcanine. Kawas used Jinx, and Gary used Arcanine to fight. Arcanine has the advantage in attributes. The host introduced the Pokemon sent by the two players, LV40 Jinx/Jim, LV43 Arcanine 3/Quasi-Elite. The levels of the two Pokemon are similar. Gary was also surprised by Kawa's strength. The first Pokemon was level 40. Is this still the Indigo Plateau Conference that Gary remembered? Jinx used Psychic. Kawas took the initiative to attack. Jinx's dead fish eyes glowed blue, and a wave of telekinesis burst out, trying to restrain Arcanine's body. But Arcanine was very strong and used his own strength to resist, making Jinx unable to move Arcanine's body. Flamethrower, Gary ordered. Arcanine opened his mouth to flamethrower, and Jinx had no chance to dodge and was instantly engulfed by the flames. Meow, being attacked by the flames. Jinx's psychic was also interrupted, and cold air burst out from his body, extinguishing the flames, but he himself had already suffered considerable damage. Extreme speed. Swoosh. Arcanine was covered by the power of wind and rushed towards Jinx quickly. Without giving Jinx any time to react, he knocked Jinx out with one headbutt and then spit up the flames. Bang! The flames engulfed Jinx again, and when Jinx fell from the air, he lost consciousness. Jinx has lost the ability to fight, the referee announced. The battle lasted less than a minute, and Arcanine defeated Jinx, which shows that this Jinx is not very strong. Gary thought Jinx was level 40 and had some strength. It seems that even if the Pokemon level has increased, there is still a certain gap between the two sides. It may be due to insufficient training. On the electronic screen in the stadium, one of the 3 red lights under Kawas' avatar went out, leaving only 2 lights. Kawas only has 2 Pokemon left. What Pokemon will he use to deal with Gary's Arcanine next? After speaking, Kawas took out a Pokeball and threw it out. For Arcanine, it's up to you. Go ahead, Poliwrath. Great. A Poliwrath with a strong blue body and black and white spiral patterns on its belly appeared. Kawa's second Pokemon is Poliwrath, which restrains Arcanine in terms of attributes. I wonder how Gary will deal with it. The host announced, LV38 Poliwrath 3/Jim. Come back and rest. Gary decisively subdued Arcanine. It's not that Arcanine can't defeat this Poliwrath, but there's no need to waste this time. Although Arcanine is at a high level, fighting on the ice field, coupled with the attribute being restrained, it is very likely to capsize. Gary knows that the ice field is not very solid, and a few fire skills can melt the ice field. Gary took back Arcanine, and I don't know what Pokemon he will send to fight next. Gary took a Pokeball from the display on his belt and threw it. Go, World Monkey. Great. LV47 World Monkey 3/Quasi-Elite. The World Monkey with light gray hair all over his body appeared. The World Monkey exuded an arrogant aura, making all creatures who saw it feel that it was angry and dared not approach it. What Pokemon is this? Kawas was confused when she saw this Pokemon. She didn't recognize the Pokemon in front of her at all, and she didn't even know what attribute it was. Oh, the Pokemon sent by player Gary is extremely rare World Monkey. Xiao's is the evolution of Primeape. It is said that the evolution method has been studied by Professor Oak. Host exclaimed, the evolution of Primeape is the fighting type. Kawas thought, use Bubble Beam. Kawas ordered. Poliwrath immediately ejected Bubble Beam, and the spit-up bubble was like a normal bullet shooting at the abandoned monkey at a rapid speed. Crazy Fury swipes. Gary doused system. The abandoned monkey kept waving his claws and rushing forward. Rather than waving and grabbing, it was better to say that the abandoned monkey was using Comet Punch to blow up all the bubbles that were shot. I want to fight close combat. Who's afraid of who? Seeing that the abandoned monkey kept approaching, it was obvious that he wanted to fight close combat, and Kawas would not admit defeat and said, Dynamic Punch. Gugwa. Poliwrath immediately rushed forward, raised his fist, and punched out. The Dynamic Punch, shining with white light, hit the head of the abandoned monkey, and the fist went straight through. 144. Complete victory over rival. Gugwa. Poliwrath looked incredulous when he saw the fist that passed through the body of the abandoned monkey. He couldn't figure out why. The next second, Gary immediately issued an order. Dynamic punch. The abandoned monkey threw a heavy punch, and with a bang, Poliwrath retreated violently, sliding on the ice until he flew out of the field. Poliwrath, who stopped, was already dizzy and couldn't tell east, west, south, and north. He was in a chaotic contest condition. Poliwrath, cheer up, Kawash shouted, but it was useless. Poliwrath was hitting randomly, and all his attacks hit the air around him. Continuous shadow punch. Defeat Poliwrath. Gary naturally wouldn't miss the opportunity to attack. The abandoned monkey punched the air, and shadow punch went out and hit Poliwrath. In the confusion, Poliwrath subconsciously swung his fist in the direction of the attack, but unfortunately his fist hit the air, hitting in vain. The Forsaken used shadow punch in succession, and after being hit by 7 or 8 shadow punches, Poliwrath also fell down. Poliwrath has lost his ability to fight, the referee announced. Oh my god, this Forsaken shadow is so powerful. Just now, Poliwrath's dynamic punch went through the body of the Forsaken. Why? I don't know, did it miss? Many viewers were puzzled as to why Poliwrath's dynamic punch went through the body of the Forsaken, but many viewers also saw what was going on, but were too lazy to say it. Ghost type. Kawas also guessed why at this moment, but she could never have imagined that the evolved form of Primeape actually had Ghost type, which was really surprising. But it was too late to say anything now. Kawas only had the last Pokemon left, and it would be very difficult to turn the tables. On the electronic screen, only the last of the 3 lights under Kawas' avatar was on. Kawas only has 1 Pokemon left. Can she make a comeback? After the host introduction, Kawas threw out the Pokeball and sent out her last Pokemon. I'll leave it to you in the end, Wigglytuff. Great! A pink and tender ball-shaped Pokemon appeared, the final evolution of the Pink Devil, Wigglytuff. LV35 Wigglytuff / Jim Gary was a little surprised. The first 2 Pokemon of Kawas were both very high, say, but the levels of the following Pokemon became lower. It seems that Kawas' strength is only normal. The preliminary round is very important to her, so the first Pokemon are the strongest, and the next 2 Pokemon are weaker. Dynamic Punch for Abandoned. Sing for Wigglytuff. Gary and Kawas issued commands at the same time. Pop, 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 poply. Wigglytuff sang a beautiful lullaby, but the Forsaken turned a deaf ear to it and came in front of Wigglytuff, hitting Wigglytuff's fat body with a dynamic punch, making its fat body tremble and its body retreating on the ice. What? Sing is useless. Kawas' eyes widened, and his beautiful pupils almost popped out. If you don't have strong enough mental power, don't use Sing casually. The Forsaken can always maintain rage. Even if Sing can hypnotize the Forsaken, it will take a song. So in the game, Sing is useless for Pokemon like the Forsaken. Pop. Wigglytuff, who was attacked by Dynamic Punch, fell into confusion and couldn't tell the situation for a while. He began to walk around the field. Very good. Use Stone Edge. Gary ordered. Wigglytuff has the Attract body ability. When attacked by contact skills, it may be confused. Gary doesn't want any accidents to happen. Mia, the Forsaken, used Stone Edge, and stone blades broke through the ice and hit Wigglytuff, causing huge damage, knocking it out of the field, hitting the wall outside the field, and falling to the ground. His eyes were spinning. Wigglytuff has lost his ability to fight. The referee immediately announced, all 3 Pokemon of Kawas have lost their ability to fight, and Gary wins. Congratulations to Gary for winning the first game. Host shouted excitedly. Too strong. This Gary defeated rival with 2 Pokemon. This Gary will definitely enter the main venue to compete. Remember the trainer using Bangla at the opening ceremony. The audience began to comment enthusiastically. Thank you for your hard work. Gary took back the Forsaken and was about to leave, but was stopped by the reporter. Gary, I'm a reporter from Kanto Alliance TV station. I want to interview you. Is that okay? The female reporter asked. Gary knew there would be an interview after the game, so he accepted it generously and nodded. Okay. You won the first preliminary match of the Ice Arena and defeated rival. Do you think this match was difficult? The female reporter asked. You won it all. Do you think it was difficult? Gary asked back. The female reporter was stunned. She didn't expect Gary to be so conceited. After all, he had to be humble when he was on TV. However, the more Gary acted like this, the more the female reporter liked him. It seems that the first match didn't put any pressure on Gary. "Do you think you can make it to the finals of this Indigo Plateau Conference?" the female reporter asked. "It's not a question of whether you can make it to the finals, but I want to win the Indigo Plateau Conference Championship," Gary said. The female reporter and the camera operators were shocked. They didn't expect Gary to speak so arrogantly. "You know, all the players who can participate in the Alliance Conference have won 8 badges, and each of them is very strong. You are ambitious, worthy of being the grandson of Professor Oak. Let's look forward to Gary's next game," the female reporter said. Gary could see that the female reporter was very treacherous. She knew that he was the grandson of Professor Oak, so she led him to say such a thing. If he lost the game later, he would be slapped in the face. Even Gary in the original book was not so arrogant. After the game, he only talked about his experience of breeder Pokémon and did not say that he would definitely win the Quartz Conference champion. Then look forward to it. Gary waved goodbye and left casually, leaving his back to the reporter without taking a cloud. This Gary is really handsome. Although the female reporter set a trap for Gary, she had to admit that Gary was handsome. With his handsome face, if he entered the entertainment industry, he would probably fascinate a group of girls. After leaving the arena, Gary handed the Pokémon he was going to play to Nurse Joy, and then went to the water arena to watch the game. Ash's first match was going to be played at the water arena. The first round of the game had not yet ended, and the draw for the second round could only be conducted after the first round was over. 1:45, the second game. The water field. When we came to the water field, the second game had already started. There was no specific time for the game. If the first game ended faster, the second game would start immediately after the field was cleaned up. When Gary came to the water field, the second game was almost over. Both sides had only one Pokémon left. In the end, the red player won. After the game, the staff cleaned up the field and the third game started. Ash versus Duowu. Ash's first game was one of his few highlights. Krabby defeated rival 3 in a row. However, Gary had seen Ash's Krabby in Professor Oak's laboratory. Ash never took care of that Krabby. Professor Oak took care of it. Every time he trained with Gary's Pokémon, and he trained according to the plan Gary made for Blastoise. The strength of that Krabby was not even inferior to Ash's main Pokémon. It is not an exaggeration to say that this Krabby was Gary's breeder. The game started. Ash's first Pokémon is Krabby, just like in the original plot. The Pokémon that Duowu sent out is Exeggutor. LV40 Krabby 3/Elite. LV30 Exeggutor 3/Gym. What a huge difference. No wonder he can win 3 games in a row. Gary was quite surprised to see Duowu's Exeggutor level. It was only level 30. How could he collect 8 badges to participate in the competition with such strength? Gary naturally thought that Duowu seemed to be a coordination trainer who specialized in participating in the contest. He could participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference because he must have passed the Alliance Appraisal exam to be eligible to participate. The battle began. Krabby took advantage of the home field advantage and Ash's magical tactics to successfully defeat Exeggutor and successfully evolve it into a crab. Duowu then sent out the second Pokémon, Seadra. LV33 Seadra 3/Gym. Seeing Duowu's Seadra, Gary finally understood why Krabby could win 3 games in a row. It was because Duowu was not strong enough. Gary admitted that the coordination trainer had some strength, but compared with the real trainer, it was still far behind. Although there was a special case of Wallace, it only applied to Wallace. For other coordination trainers, whether they could enter the top 100 of the Pokémon Championship was a problem. The following games were not worth watching. Ash defeated Duowu's Seadra and Golbat with Kingler and completed the feat of winning 3 games in a row. It became the most eye-catching game in the first round. Other players had to replace Pokémon more or less. It was difficult to win completely, but except for Gary, there were still some players who could do it. But it was really difficult to win 3 games in a row. After watching the water field, Gary and Sabrina went to the restaurant for dinner. They planned to go to the center of the venue to draw lots after dinner. Gary, I won the game. Gary and Sabrina were having dinner, and Ash and his party also came here. Ash came up and showed off his achievements today. You were lucky to meet a coordination trainer, but you may not be so lucky in the future. Gary said, coordination trainer? Ash was stunned. It was the first time he heard this term, and he didn't understand what it meant. Coordination trainers are specialized in participating in contests. They pay attention to the appearance and contest conditions of Pokémon. They will combine skills to perform a contest. Even the battle is fought in a very contest way. Misty explained, there are such trainers. Ash was shocked and asked in confusion, but what does this have to do with my victory over Duowu? Coordination trainers focus on show matches. Their Pokémon are weak in battle. They don't pursue the strong strength of Pokémon, but the coordination between skills. Although they are a little helpful for Pokémon battles, their strength is much weaker than normal trainers. Gary said, am I just lucky? Ash wanted to show off in front of Gary just now, but he didn't expect that he only defeated a half-baked coordination trainer, and he lost his confidence immediately. I guess so. Gary said. Ash was a little depressed. Ash, don't be too depressed. Although the coordination trainer is not very good, there are also very good coordination trainers. The champion of Hoenn Alliance is a coordination trainer. Misty comforted. Hoenn Alliance? What is that place? Ash asked in confusion. Ash doesn't know everything about Kanto region, so don't expect him to know the situation in other regions. Please give flowers 00. Hoenn Alliance is a place in the tropical region, which is larger than the inland of Kanto region. Gary explained. Oh, that's it. Ash nodded. Have a good meal. I hope you can have such luck in the second match. Gary said, Sabrina, let's go. Gary and Sabrina had finished their meal long ago. They just took a short break here. It was time to draw lots. The center of the venue. At this time, many trainers were drawing lots here to see who their next rival would be. Gary also found an empty counter and drew lots. Press the button and the venue will be randomly changed to the water venue, one of the 4 venues and the most difficult one. Gary's rival is a trainer named Xiao, a man from Vermilion City. After confirming the venue and rival, Gary returned to the room, turned on the computer, and searched for Xiao's information. The organizers posted the video of each player's game on the official website, and the contestants can check it on Solation. Gary naturally wanted to watch Xiao's game. Xiao's first game was in the grass venue. The 3 Pokémon he used were Victory Bell, Fiero, and Machoke. It was a lonely sight. In addition to Fiero, Victory Bell and Machoke will basically not appear in the second round. Both of these Pokémon cannot enter the water, but Fiero can move in the air. In the first round, all the players' Pokémon have not been exposed. Although Xiao's 3 Pokémon are known, the information is not very valuable. After confirming Xiao's basic information, Gary went to the teleporter and asked Professor Oak to teleport 2 Pokémon. After one night, at 9 o'clock the next morning, the second round of the Indigo Plateau Conference officially began. In the water field, the first game has begun. Gary's game is the second game of the water field. At present, the first game has been halfway through. The Pokémon levels of both sides are evenly matched. Unfortunately, the green player has only 1 water Pokémon, while rival has 2. Because of the advantage of the terrain, the green player lost to the red player. After the first game, the Cypriot side began to repair the field. 146. 1 through 3 the venue has been cleaned up, and the second game is about to begin. Next, please invite Xiao and Gary to play. The host announced. The 2 players also walked out of the passage. The green player is Gary. In the Battle of the Ice venue yesterday, he defeated rival. In the post-match interview, he claimed that he would win the Quartz Conference champion. It seems that he is one of the seeded players of this conference. The red player is Xiao. In yesterday's game, although he did not completely defeat rival, he also showed quite good strength. Today's competition venue is the water venue. Neither player used water Pokémon in the last game. I wonder what kind of water Pokémon the 2 players will have. Let's wait and see. The host briefly introduced the last round of the 2 people's game. What does this host mean? Gary didn't understand why the host, Sanjuling, wanted to say what he said in the interview yesterday. It was not a big deal. Young people should always be a little frivolous. Now let's start the game between Gary and Xiaofang. This game is 33. Now both sides are requested to release Pokémon at the same time. The referee announced. After that, the two players threw out their Pokeballs at the same time. Go Inkthorn Jellyfish. Go Blastoise. Great. LV38 Tentacruel 3/Quasi-Elite. A huge blue water curtain fell into the water. Xiaofang's Tentacruel has good potential, but its level is a bit low. It can be seen that Xiaofang's breeder of Tentacruel is not in place. LV56 Blastoise 3/Quasi-Legend. Gary directly excluded his Earl Dervish Pokémon and did not intend to do anything fancy with Xiaofang. The main reason was that the water field was very restrictive for Gary. Except for Blastoise, other Pokémon were not suitable for fighting in such a field. Xiaofang sent Tentacruel, and Gary sent Blastoise. Both are very strong water Pokémon. Host introduced. The game begins. Flash Cannon. Bubble Beam. Both sides issued commands at the same time. The Stinger Bubble sprayed Bubble Beam. Blastoise's barrel sprayed 2 Silver Beams. Dia Dig. The two skills intersected. All the bubbles of Bubble Beam were blown up. Flash Cannon defeated Bubble Beam and hit Tentacruel, directly blasting out of the field. Bang! Tentacruel hit the wall outside the field and lost consciousness. The referee was also stunned for a moment and immediately announced, Tentacruel loses the ability to fight. Xiaofang looked at the defeated Tentacruel with disbelief and couldn't believe that his Tentacruel was killed instantly. What? Blastoise killed Tentacruel instantly with a Flash Cannon. It's too terrible. Host exclaimed, Oh my god, is Flash Cannon a very powerful skill? It's okay, it's mainly because of Gary's Blastoise is strong enough. Oh my god, so awesome. The audience was also shocked to see Blastoise kill the Stinger water curtain in 1 second. But after the shock, excitement followed. Fang's face became serious. He took back Tentacruel and then sent out the second Pokémon. Great. LV40 Starmie/Jim. There's a second one. Gary didn't expect Fang to have a second water-type Pokémon. Jim is okay. It's still a pretty good Pokémon, with dual attributes of water and psychic, a wide skill pool, and a high species strength, making it very suitable to be the main Pokémon for breeder. Hydro Pump. Gary ordered. Blastoise immediately fired the Hydro Pump, and Starmie immediately used the water gun to counterattack. How could the tiny water gun be able to keep up with the Hydro Pump? It was instantly shattered into water by the Hydro Pump, and the Hydro Pump hit Starmie without hesitation. Bang! Starmie was directly knocked out of the edge of the pool and stopped after hitting the pool wall, but Starmie was not defeated, but was seriously injured. Quick, use Recover. Xiaofang ordered hurriedly. Starmie used Recover to repair her injuries, but Gary and Blastoise would not give them a chance. Surging, Blastoise jumped into the water, surrounded by water, and rushed towards Starmie quickly. Wherever he passed, the water on both sides continued to spread out. Use Rapid Spin. Xiaofang ordered. Bang! Starmie was unable to compete with Blastoise in strength, and was directly knocked out of the pool and fell to the ground. Ruby in the center kept flashing red light. Starmie lost her ability to fight, said the referee. So strong, Blastoise defeated Starmie in 2 moves. Does that mean Gary will also perform a 3-in-1 record? Host explained excitedly. What to do? Xiaofang has already felt how strong Gary's Blastoise is, and the 3 Pokémon he prepared are not rival at all. Venomoth, I'll leave it to you in the end. Helplessly, Xiaofang could only bite the bullet and send out the last Pokémon. Great. LV39 Venomoth/Jim, a lavender moth fluttered in the air. Xiaofang's last Pokémon is Venomoth. It seems that he wants to assist the advantage in the air, but will it work? Host knew that Xiaofang was powerless, even if Venomoth could fly. Venomoth's tactic is to use powder skills to give rival status condition, and then slowly consume rival's physical strength. But this is a water field, and Venomoth's powder will be dissolved by water, and it will not affect Blastoise at all. Even if Blastoise can't fly, he can use long-range moves at will, and he has the advantage of the field. There is no limit to the number of water skills of Blastoise, so he can use them at will. It is only a matter of time before Venomoth is hit. After all, flying requires physical strength, and Venomoth can't fly in the sky all the time. There is no suspense in the next battle. Xiao Feng asked Venomoth to use poison powder, but poison powder dissolved when it fell in the water. But if too much poison powder was released, even if Blastoise stayed in the water, he would still be poisoned. But how could Gary allow this to happen? Blastoise used Water Pulse to counterattack continuously, making it impossible for Venomoth to release poison powder smoothly. He could only dodge, but he would lose if he defended too long. It didn't take long before he was hit by a Water Pulse and fell from the air into the water. When he floated up, his eyes were already spinning. Venomoth is a bug-type Pokémon, very fragile, and because he was crushed in level, he couldn't withstand any of Blastoise's attack skills. Venomoth lost his ability to fight. All three Pokémon of Xiao Feng were defeated, and the winner is Gary, the referee announced. Congratulations to Gary. You won the second game with a 3-in-a-row record. The battle ended, and the interview session began. It was still the female reporter from before. Gary was also surprised to see this female reporter. This woman reporter should be staying in the ice rink. Why is he here? 147. Post-match interview. The preliminary rounds were held in 4 venues, and they were held simultaneously, so naturally 4 reporters were arranged to interview in the 4 venues. Gary didn't know that the reporters also hoped to interview the seeded players. In order to be fair, the reporters took turns to interview. The female reporter interviewed at the ice venue yesterday and at the water venue today. It can only be said to be a coincidence. Gary, congratulations on winning the second game. It seems that you really have the strength to compete for the championship of this Indigo Plateau Conference. The female reporter said, the first round of the game can completely defeat rival, but the second round will be difficult. After all, they're all people who have won a victory. The overall strength must be stronger than those eliminated trainers. Those trainers who are just filling in the numbers have basically been eliminated. Gary was able to play a 3-in-a-row record in the second round, which undoubtedly proves that Gary is very strong and deserves the title of seeded player. Before entering the main venue, the media will comment on the seeded players. There are many seeded players on the list now. When entering the 6th round of the game, 2 favorites to win the championship will be selected. Based on the performance of all the seeded players so far, Gary's record can be ranked first. Then 0-2 is of course. Gary said, then Gary, you will have to fight in the grass field and the demonstration field later. Do you have confidence that you can still do it like today? The female reporter asked. If I have to win 3 games in every game, I think I can do it, but that's not very good. Gary said, why? The female reporter asked in confusion. Obviously, they are aiming to win the court's conference champion. Isn't it better to keep a high profile? I have a lot of Pokémon in my hand, and they all need to laser focus themselves in the Indigo Plateau Conference. If I use my main Pokémon, other Pokémon will have no chance to play in the game. Gary said. The female reporter felt that Gary was really power trip. He used the Indigo Plateau Conference to laser focus his Pokémon, which also meant that the players in the Indigo Plateau Conference were not qualified to force him to use his full strength. If this was said by a teenager, it would be normal, but Gary was only 10 years old, and he made such a bold statement, which seemed a bit arrogant and ignorant. So, Gary, you can defeat every player 3 at a time. The female reporter said. That's not the case. Maybe the players in the quarterfinals have a chance to defeat the 2 Pokémon. Gary said. The female reporter smiled and said, then look forward to your future games, Gary. I believe that after this interview, Gary's fame will rise to a higher level. After all, it is rare to see such a proud player. Especially Gary is the grandson of Professor Oak. After a day of fermentation, all major trainer forums are full of posts about the Indigo Plateau Conference, and there are quite a few posts about Gary. It's just that Gary himself doesn't pay attention to all this. After all, the comments on the forum can only be regarded as idle chat after dinner. There are many rumors and no value in paying attention. After the battle, Gary handed Blastoise to Joy for treatment. Anyway, Blastoise was not injured, just needed maintenance. After handing Blastoise to Joy, Gary went to the water field and watched the next game with Sabrina. The morning game lasted until 11 o'clock. After watching the game, Gary and Sabrina came to the restaurant in the player village to eat and happened to meet Ash and the other two. Since they all knew each other, they naturally sat together to eat. Gary, I won the second game too. Ash, of course, couldn't keep secrets. As soon as he sat down, he told Gary about his victory. Oh, congratulations, Gary said. Ash was confused by Gary's indifferent response. Before, Gary would take the opportunity to comment on him. Why was he suddenly so approachable? Don't you have anything to say? Ash asked. What do you want me to say? Give me some advice. Ash had already seen how much help Gary had given him, so he wanted to see if Gary had any opinions. Now that we're already in the game, what advice can I give you? It's useless to cram at the last minute. What you have to do now is to go all out in every game, absorb experience from every failure, and treat it as a training. Gary said, well, what you said makes sense, but what do you mean? What do you mean by failure? I didn't lose. Ash suddenly realized that there was something wrong with Gary's words. He had won 2 games in a row and had never lost. I have watched all the contestants' games so far. With their trainer abilities and breeder Pokémon, to be honest, Ash's current Pokémon is not strong enough. Gary said, what? Why do you say that? Ash didn't think that his strength would be inferior to the trainers at the Indigo Plateau Conference, especially since he and Gary started from Pallet Town at the same time. If Gary could do it, why couldn't he, Ash? Then you should perform well. I hope to meet you in the competition after the 6th round. Gary said, to be honest, Ash's strength is not bad, but the key is that the time of breeder Pokémon is too short. It is not easy to advance to the top 16 in 1 year. Okay, I will definitely advance to show you, Ash said. Gary didn't say much and left with Sabrina. Ash continued to eat in the restaurant. Look, that's Gary's match video. Misty saw that the public TV in the restaurant was playing Quartz Gold's wonderful match highlights. Ash immediately looked at the TV and saw a Blastoise using Flash Cannon to kill a Stinger Hydro Pump in 1 shot, then defeated Starmie with 2 moves, and then easily defeated Venomoth, winning the game smoothly. The entire game lasted no more than 5 minutes. That's Gary's Blastoise. After Cinnabar Island, he became stronger. As a breeder, Xiao could see that Gary's Blastoise had grown a lot. Gary, Ash looked at the game seriously. He thought about today's game. He first lost 2 Pokémon and then defeated 1 Pokémon of the opponent. In the end, he relied on Squirtle to fight 2 Pokémons. Gary won the first game and won 3 games in a row in the second game. This record can be said to be the most dazzling record of the Indigo Plateau Conference. Otherwise, how could it be included in the wonderful battle collection? Gon and Misty also noticed that Ash's expression changed, but they didn't say much. They knew that Ash was thinking about Gary, and they couldn't say anything about this. After all, Gary's current strength is higher than Ash's. This is an indisputable fact. It is very difficult for Ash to defeat Gary. 148. Game 3, Grass Field after lunch. Gary and Sabrina came to the center of the venue and drew lots. Press the button and the venue will be randomly changed to the grass venue. Gary saw that it was the grass venue, so the 4th game was the rock venue. In the original book, Gary's last game of the Indigo Plateau Conference was in the 4th round, also in the rock venue. I have to sigh at the power of fate, but this time, Gary will definitely not stop at the 4th round. That trainer named Jimu must beat this guy into a cripple. Gary, your rival tomorrow is called Xiao, the lady at the counter reminded. Gary nodded and looked at the photo on the screen. Xiao is a brown-haired girl who looks about the same age as Sabrina. Trainers who can make it to the 3rd round are basically not very strong, and they are all at the level of real materials. After knowing who rival is, Gary went back to check Xiao's game video. Xiao's first game was in the rock venue, and the Pokemon she used were Wartortle and Nidoqueen. The second match was fought in the ice field, and the Pokemon used were Ninetales and Arcanine. In both matches, 2 Pokemon were used to defeat rival, which seemed to be a very powerful rival. After all, the trainer who had Arcanine must have a very good family background. Gary predicted that the grass field was naturally the most suitable for grass and bug-type Pokemon to fight in it, but fire-type Pokemon were also suitable. It was estimated that one of Ninetales and Arcanine should be on the field. The 3rd day of the Indigo Plateau Conference. 2 p.m. Gary came to the grass field because the match was scheduled for the first match in the afternoon. Welcome to all the audience who came to watch the game and the audience watching on TV. The third round of the Indigo Plateau Conference will be held in the afternoon. Please invite the first game players, Gary and Xiao, to enter. After that, Gary and Xiao walked out of the contestant channel, entered the stadium amid the cheers of the crowd, and stood in the command area. Come on, Gary. Set another record of 3 in a row. Come on, Xiao. Don't lose to Gary. Gary. Come on, Gary. So handsome. The audience shouted and cheered fiercely. After 2 rounds of competition, many trainers received great attention. Gary won the favor of many girls with his excellent performance and handsome appearance. Now, there is a cheerleading team dedicated to cheering for him. How could it be? Gary also just found out because he could see the huge banner in the audience when he stood in the stadium. The banner read, Gary's Life. Cheerleading team. Gary is still quite averse to cheerleading. When he was in Pallet Town, he deliberately stayed away from those crazy fans. I didn't expect that after participating in an Indigo Plateau Conference, after only 2 rounds of competition, someone actually formed a Gary cheerleading team. It was really surprising. 0, alas. Gary sighed helplessly. It seemed that he was too handsome. No matter where he went, he would be favored by Stephanie's girls. Gary's popularity is really high. I hope he can play a wonderful record like in the previous 2 games. Although Xiaozi's record in the first 2 games was not as good as Gary's, her strength is not weak. It should be a big challenge for Gary. The host introduced the basic conditions of the 2 players. Xiao felt uncomfortable. What did it mean to cause a big challenge for Xiao Mao? Did he think he would lose? He participated in the Indigo Plateau Conference with the purpose of winning. Xiao looked at Gary. She also saw Gary's post-match interview. Seeing Gary despise all the players of the Indigo Plateau Conference, she was naturally very angry. This time, she wanted to see how strong Gary was. Next, Gary and Xiao will have a 3-on-3 match. Please release Pokémon at the same time. The referee announced. B-drill, please. Executor, come on. Both sides recognize the Pokeball at the same time. Great. LV40 B-drill / gym, great. LV48 Executor 3 / Quasi-Elite. The Pokemon sent by Natsuko is B-drill, and the Pokemon sent by Gary is Executor. Executor is very restrained by B-drill. Host explained. B-drill. Gary didn't expect that Xiao actually had another B-drill. Executor has both grass and psychic attributes, and both attributes are afraid of bug type. So the Yo-type skills will cause 4 times the damage to Executor. Even though Gary's Executor is higher level than the opponent's B-drill, if it is hit by a bug-type skill from B-drill, it will be greatly damaged. Good luck, B-drill. Use Pin Missile. Xiao immediately launched an attack. The thick white needles on B-drill's hands flashed white light, and Pin Missiles were ejected and shot towards Executor. After dodging, use Psyshock, Gary ordered. Executor moved quickly on the field, even pulling out a shadow, easily dodging all the Pin Missiles, and then used Psychic Gold ability to impact B-drill. B-drill only felt an irresistible force, and his body flew more than 10 meters in the air before he stabilized himself. What? Why is Executor so fast? Xiao was shocked. She had fought against Executor before, but she had never seen Executor so fast. Such a fast speed. Executor's chlorophyll ability was triggered. Host explained. What? Xiao looked up at the sky and was immediately pierced by the sunlight and couldn't raise her head. Thinking of the fact that she had applied sunscreen when she went out today, she didn't expect Gary to take the weather into consideration. Psyshock. The eyes on the foreheads of Executor shone blue. An invisible Psyshock beam shot out. Get out of the way. B-drill wanted to dodge, but Psyshock's attack speed was too fast. B-drill had no chance to dodge and was hit by Psyshock again. Bang! B-drill didn't fly backwards this time. He was smacked down and fell to the ground. His eyes were dim. B-drill loses his ability to fight, the referee announced. Although B-drill is very restrained against Executor, it is also restrained by Psychic. In addition, its physical defense is very low. It is difficult to withstand one Psyshock, and it is impossible to withstand two. Come back. Xiaozi took back B-Drill and sent out the second one, saying, "Go, Ninetales." Great. LV-42 Ninetales 9/Quasi-Elite. As Gary guessed, among the 3 Pokemon that Xiaozi sent out today, one of Ninetales and Arcanine will definitely appear. Arcanine fought very hard yesterday and is not suitable for continuous fighting. So Xiaozi sent Ninetales to the field this time. Especially now that the sun is so strong, it is also suitable for fire Pokemon to fight in such a climate. 149. Another complete win over rival Executor. Come back. Recall Executor. Gary will not force a fight with an unnecessary reverse attribute. Pidgeot, the rest is up to you. Gary threw the Pokeball. Great. The feather contest, Pidgeot soared into the sky, looking down at Ninetales below. LV-50 Pidgeot 3/Elite. Gary recalled Executor and sent out Pidgeot, both Pokemon that had not been used in previous competitions. Host introduced. Natsuko didn't expect Gary to have a Pidgeot, especially this Pidgeot is much bigger than other Pidgeots. It looks very powerful. Ninetales used Fire Whirlpool. Natsuko didn't want Gary to replace Pokemon again. Ninetales spit up a flame. The flame seemed to have intelligence normal. Try to surround Pidgeot. Gary looked at the flame flying up soaring in the sky, smiled contemptuously, and said, "Pidgeot, use Hurricane." Pidgeot unfolded dual wing beat, flapped it hard, and a terrifying whirlwind passed by. The fire whirlpool was blown away in an instant, and countless wind blades formed in the whirlwind, falling towards the ground, attacking indiscriminately. Woo! Ninetales wanted to stabilize his body, but his weight was too light, and he was blown away by Hurricane directly. The wind blade fell on Ninetales, causing serious damage to him. Natsuko was slightly surprised and didn't expect Pidgeot's the power of Hurricane is so terrifying. Pidgeot carries a 343 grade sharp bird beak. With the attribute bonus, the power of Hurricane is 260, which is higher than the power of normal type Pokemon using self-destruct. This Ninetales can withstand a storm of Pidgeot without falling, which is quite good, but the current Ninetales will definitely not be able to withstand the second Hurricane. Improve Pidgeot's Hurricane skill. Use Disable. Xiaozi suddenly ordered. Woo! Ninetales' eyes radiated a mysterious blue light, and the magical power of the Earth Knee temporarily imprisoned Pidgeot's Hurricane skill. Pidgeot also immediately felt that he could not use Hurricane for the time being. Aerial Ace. Gary ordered. Pidgeot flapped dual wing beat and shot out like a galloping arrow, and the air made a sonic boom sound. Flamethrower. Ninetales immediately spit up a large piece of flame, but the flame just spit up several meters away. Pidgeot plunged directly into the flames, and the flames seemed to be cut normal, split into two, and Pidgeot crashed into Gobi. Ouch! Ninetales screamed in pain, and his body was hit hard. He retreated 10 meters away and fell on the grass with his eyes closed. Ninetales lost his ability to fight. Pidgeot wins, the referee announced. So strong, Gary's Pidgeot quickly took down Ninetales. Host exclaimed, "Come back, Ninetales." Natsuko silently took back Ninetales. She finally realized how powerful Gary was. Her Pokemon was completely suppressed by the opponent. Natsuko now only has 1 Pokemon left, while Gary still has 3 Pokemon to use. It's a big crisis. Everyone also saw that Natsuko's victory was slim, and it was almost impossible to turn the tables. Vileplume, you go. Natsuko sent out her last Pokemon. Great. Vileplume with huge petals on its head appeared. LV-43 Vileplume/Gym. Host. Natsuko's last Pokemon is Vileplume, but it is restrained by Pidgeot in terms of attribute. How will Natsuko deal with it? Gary looked at Vileplume to see if Vileplume had any changes. Vileplume's basic ability is Chlorophyll, and its hidden ability is Spores. Vileplume with the Spore ability will automatically eject spores from its body after being attacked. If these spores are absorbed, Pokemon will be poisoned, paralyzed, or sleep in the contest condition, so you can't get close to Pokemon with the Spore ability. Vileplume use Petal Blizzard. Natsuko launched the attack. The huge petals on Vileplume's head shone with pink light, and pink petals flew out like snow, turning into a flower tornado and rushing towards soaring in the sky. Air Slash. Pidgeot flapped dual wing beat, and wind blades more than 1 meter long tore the flower tornado into pieces and hit Vileplume. Vileplume, who was attacked, burst out a large number of spores in his body. Natsuko's Vileplume is indeed a spore ability, so Gary won't let Pidgeot use contact skills to attack Vileplume. The chance of a comeback is gone. Vileplume was hit by Air Slash, which directly hit him hard. Continue to use Air Slash to send Vileplume to the road. Gary ordered. There were no fancy tactics. Pidgeot occupied the air superiority and continuously released Air Slash. Even if Vileplume counterattacked, it was useless because its skills were far less powerful than Pidgeot. How could a Vileplume resist the 150 power Air Slash? Once again, the skills collided, and the Air Slash broke Petal Dance and hit Vileplume, defeating it. Vileplume lost the ability to fight. The referee immediately announced. All 3 Pokémon of Natsuko were defeated, and the winner was Gary. Congratulations to Gary, winning the 3rd game, and a complete victory over rival. Host congratulated. Oh my god, this Gary's really not just talking nonsense. He has something. In the 3rd round of the game, no one can win a complete victory. Lord Gary, you are so hot. Lord Gary, you are so handsome. The audience was impressed by Gary's strength. This is the 3rd round of the competition. Another batch of trainers have been eliminated. The remaining trainers are not weak at all, and they can still win the game. This really proves that Gary is really capable. The battle is over, and the post-match interview session begins. I don't know what kind of inexplicable fate it is. Gary met the female reporter who interviewed him before. Mr. Gary, we meet again. The female reporter was also very happy. She didn't expect to meet Gary in 3 consecutive interviews with court change. She was really lucky. What a coincidence. Is there anything you want to ask? Gary said, Mr. Gary, have you used your main Pokémon in these 3 games? The female reporter asked. Of course I have. Can you tell me which ones they are? The Pokémon I used in the game are all my main Pokémon. Gary said, I mean which ones are the strongest ones? The female reporter corrected her question. No comment. Gary said, how could Gary do such a thing that exposes his own strength? Especially tomorrow's battle is in the rock field. Rival is likely to eliminate the kitten Jimu in the original plot. Gary will not self-destruct his own strength at this time, so that Jimu can be prepared. Then Mr. Gary, in the 4th game tomorrow, do you think you can still win the game? The female reporter asked a different question. We'll see what happens then. I'm leaving first. Gary left coldly after saying this. 150. Game 4, the destined rival of the game, is over. Gary handed the 2 Pokémon that played in the game to Joy, and then went to the water field to watch the game. As for why he went to the water field, it was naturally to watch Jimu's game. After all, the next rival is likely to be him. Unfortunately, when he came to the water field, Jimu's game was almost over, but through the big screen in the field, you can see the 3 Pokémon used by Jimu, namely Golduck, Water Pokémon, and Gyarados. Jimu's current Pokémon is Gyarados, and his rival uses Victory Bell. The attribute does not restrain Gyarados with Flying type, and the field is not suitable for Victory Bell to fight. There was no accident in the battle between the 2 sides. Gyarados easily defeated Victory Bell and helped Jimu win the 3rd game. LV45 Gyarados 3/Gym. Gary saw the level of Gyarados and had a rough idea of Jimu's strength. This guy's strength was comparable to Ash's, and he should be stronger than Ash, so he was not that difficult to deal with. It seems that I was too cautious. Gary thought about it and felt that he cared too much about Jimu. A careful analysis shows that Gary in the original book could fight Jimu on equal terms, not to mention the current Gary. Gary in the original book captured 200 Pokémon. In order to determine which Pokémon was more suitable for training, he bred each Pokémon to see which one was more suitable for breeding. If Gary did not capture so many Pokémon and focus on a main Pokémon, he would basically not lose to Jimu. After watching Jimu's game, Gary went back to the grass field to find Sabrina. In the evening, after dinner, Gary and Napo came to the center of the venue to draw lots. There is no need to choose a venue. Just choose a rival directly, and the staff lady will draw randomly. Gary's rival is the rival in the plot, Jimu. It's really him. Gary sighed that fate is so wonderful. The rival of the fourth round is Jimu. After confirming who the rival is, Gary called Professor Oak and sent the corresponding Pokémon. The next morning, Gary and Sabrina came to the rock field. Gary's game is the third game, and he needs to watch 2 games first. But coincidentally, Ash and the other 2 are also here, and they also bumped into Gary and Sabrina. "Ash, why are you here?" Seeing Ash, Gary asked with interest. Gary remembered that the venue for Ash's 4th game should be the grass field. "I'm here to investigate the rival information." Ash said, "Really? I think you want to investigate my information." Gary said, "So what?" Ash did not deny it. He just wanted to see Gary's strength. Indigo Plateau Conference held 3 rounds of competitions. Gary's current record ranked first among all the players, so he would naturally attract the attention of other contestants. Although he had watched Gary's game video, Ash still wanted to go to the scene to see Gary's game in person. "Then you must watch carefully. I will show my full strength in this game. I hope you won't be discouraged." Gary said, Have you not even used your full strength in the competition so far?" Ash asked in confusion. In the 3 games, except for the first round, which went very smoothly, Ash's other 2 rounds were very difficult. He was beaten to the last Pokémon left, and then he turned the tables to win. "Of course, you just watch carefully and learn well." After Gary finished speaking, he went to the player area with Sabrina to sit and watch the game. "Arrogant guy." Ash pouted. Although he was very unconvinced, Gary's record was ranked first, while Ash's record was not good. If it weren't for the record of 1-on-3 in the first game, his record ranking would definitely be ranked last. After watching 2 games, it was finally the turn of the 3rd game. The 3rd match will start. Please invite Gary and Jimu to enter. Gary's current record is the best among all the contestants. He once said that he would win the Quartz Conference champion. It seems that this is true. Jimu is also quite strong. Although his record in the first 3 matches is not as good as Gary, he also played very well and has many powerful Pokémon. The host announced the entry of the players and introduced their identities. After the introduction of the host, Gary and Jishu were already standing in the command area. Now Gary and Jimu will play a 3-on-3 match. Please send out your Pokémon. The referee announced. 0. Please give me flowers. Gary and Jimu both threw Pokeballs at the same time. Great. LV45 Gyarados / Gym, great. LV52 Aerodactyl 3 / Elite, what? The Pokemon sent by Gary is Aerodactyl. Host was stunned when he saw Aerodactyl appear. It's the Aerodactyl from Deshag. Ash said in surprise. I didn't expect Gary to tame Aerodactyl. Is this Aerodactyl very strong? Gon and Misty knew that Gary had tamed Aerodactyl, but they had never seen this Aerodactyl fight, so they didn't know how strong it was. It should be very strong. Ash actually didn't know the strength of this Aerodactyl. At that time in the underground cave, before Aerodactyl appeared, Gary defeated and captured the other 8 ancient Pokemon. After Aerodactyl came out, he was also defeated and captured by Gary. It was impossible to judge the specific experience of Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl, such a rare Pokemon, has. Jimu was also shocked. He had only seen Aerodactyl in books, and this was the first time he saw a living one. The battle begins, the referee announced. Gyarados, use Hydro Pump. Although Jimu didn't know Aerodactyl, he could judge that Aerodactyl was a rock type, and the water skills would naturally restrain Aerodactyl. Stone Edge. Gary ordered. Aerodactyl unfolded dual wing beat, and stone blades condensed and shot towards Hydro Pump. Hydro Pump couldn't resist the stone blades at all and was chopped by the stone blades. Countless sharp blades hit Aerodactyl, causing considerable damage. Gyarados is a physical attacker. Letting a physical attacker Pokemon use special attack skills to fight Aerodactyl is just asking for defeat. Gyarados use Aqua Tail. Jimu saw that he couldn't win against the long-range skills, so he immediately changed the order. Gyarados jumped up into the air, wrapped a layer of water on his tail, and whipped towards Aerodactyl. Wing attack. Gary was naturally not afraid. Aerodactyl manipulated the power of wind, lingering on dual wingbeat, and swung dual wingbeat fiercely to fight against Gyarados' Aquatail. 151. Taunting the gym trainer, huh? The two sides collided in the air and were both bounced back by the force of the collision, but Aerodactyl used Stone Edge again after being bounced back. Gyarados also used Aquatail to resist, but there were too many Stone Edges, and Aquatail was able to smash all of them. Many of them broke through Aquatail and fell on Gyarados, smacked down to the ground. Rock Slide. Gary showed no mercy and continued to chase. Aerodactyl flew to Gyarados' sky and condensed a large number of stones. The stones fell from the sky. Gyarados just stood up and was hit by the stones. He roared and fell down unwillingly. Bang! Seeing Gyarados lying on the ground, the referee immediately announced, Gyarados has lost.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.